Yeah. Yeah, jam it onto the kazoos. Ha! I love the kazoo, don't you? I like the harmonica too, though, yeah. Yeah. Woo! Yeah. Yeah. Ha! All right. Yay! I love that ending. Oh, I love that ending. I love the whole piece. But hey, what do you expect from a kid, right? What do you expect from a kid? Well, you might be wondering, as I get some more lights on here, you might be wondering what is about to happen in this premiere after that outrageous, crazy beginning. If I can plug all my lights in. Well, what's about to happen is we are about to put this Pfaff 130-6 that comes with a really cool embroidery kit on the back of it to the test. This is the final phase after I take a machine through my entire process, which sometimes takes months. And there's over 100 steps in pretty much any prep that I do on a machine to get it ready to come before the cameras like this during a premiere. I'm one of the few people I know that has as complex and as detailed of a process as I do to finalize a machine to get it ready to go underneath the bright lights and in front of the cameras during a live premiere like this. Other folks will take still shots and they'll do other things like that. They might do a quick little video clip of the machine sewing a single line of stitches and that's it. And then you're kind of left to wonder, well, but can it do this? But can it sew this? How does it do with that? What's the stitch quality on this type of material with this many layers? That's why I spend so much time during these premieres running a machine through the races and through the stitch offs and through the confirmations, because I want to be able to show that owner before they ever see the machine some of the things that that machine is able to do. And I say some because I'm not even during the course of an hour and a half to a 2-hour premiere able to cover all the different facets of what that machine is able to do. And I never demonstrate the full max of what that machine can do from a heavy duty standpoint, because we would be here all day long, because these machines, when I get done with them, they are stronger when they left the factory They are able to do things that people that used to take these machines door to door and sell them for the companies way back in the day will say, I used to demonstrate a machine just like that 130-6, and it could not do what you showed that machine capable of doing. So that again is why people from around the country, around the world will reach out and say, I could go anywhere. I've got a dozen places within 100 miles of me, but I'm reaching all the way out to you from Switzerland, from Canada, from Australia, from Ireland, from the United Kingdom, or within the US, from New York, from California, from Washington State, you name it. Because I want one of your machines, Scott. Your machines are the best in the world. And you know what? I don't say that. That's what these folks say to me. So I'm really humbled by that vote of confidence. But you know what? I put myself under the fire, my feet to the fire, my toes to the fire, because I want these machines to be absolutely at the top of their game by the time they are going to be heading out the workshop, heading out of the workshop to go to that customer. I want them to know that when that machine arrives, it's going to get the job done. Okay, I'm going to take a breath now. Whew. I'm a little bit winded from all the talking, but also from jamming on my harmonica. What'd you think of that? And if you're like me, if you're a kid at heart, if you've got a little bit of Tinkerbell or Peter Pan in your soul, then you already know that piece was jamming out with kazoos. Now, any of you, have any of you, and I've asked this in another premiere, have any of you in attendance today played a kazoo? Did you play one back in school when that was a thing? If you did, type it into the chat as I ring the bell to signify that the class is officially underway, and indicate, what your experience was. Did you do it in elementary school, middle school, high school? Were you in a jazz band with kazoos when you were a full-grown adult? Just type in the chat. I'd just be curious to know. So the beginning of the class is officially underway. And I'm ringing that bell also in honor of my friends Emily and Veronica down in the great state of Texas, and for all of my Texans down there that have been struggling with the craziness of water freezing and freezing temperatures and no heat and no electricity and all the other incredible challenges that my good friends down in Texas have been going through. So my thoughts and prayers, and I'm sure everyone else in attendance here at this premiere, their thoughts and prayers are with you folks as well. And I know you're kind of coming towards the end of that tunnel where you can start to see some light, but what a ride you folks have had. And I know Texans are tough, but that is totally out of left field what y'all had to go through. So prayers and thoughts with my good friends down in Texas as well. And isn't it appropriate to think about Texas, because that's also where the owner of this 130-6 is waiting for this machine to arrive. They're down in Texas right now waiting. And that's my good friend, Sandra Sokol. Sandra Sokol is down in Texas, and they're a military family. Her husband is a doctor. They're down in the neck of the woods near Fort Hood, Texas. And she has had a real busy couple of months. 9 months, almost 10 months now, because they just had a brand new baby boy as well. And that's part of the reason I wanted to drive the theme of this premiere around a children's type perspective. Bring us to those kid songs, those fun songs, people jamming on kazoos. And just bring a lot of laughter into this as well, a lot of fun, because they just had a brand new baby boy, like I said. And guess what? Over a month before this baby boy was born, and they were kind of looking, okay, the baby's going to be born in January. We know that pretty much, but we don't know what day. And I joked with Sandra. I said, Sandra, wouldn't it be a hoot if your baby boy was born on January 14th? And she said, why? I said, because that's my birthday. Yeah, it is. So she was laughing, and we kind of joked a little bit back and forth, and she said, hey, I'll do my best. But you know what? whatever happens, happens. But if it happens on January 14th, that would be woohoo! For me, because I'm done with it, yay. And also because it's your birthday, Scott. So, and the other thing I learned recently, and I want to share this with y'all real quick. I got to change the screens on my phone and go to this screenshot that I saved, because the other thing that I discovered only recently, and this is after we have been immersed in all of the stuff centered around the History Museum down in South Bend, Indiana, our good friends down there that we raised over $10,000 for. Let me come into this shot. That we raised over $10,000 for in only 10 days. I got some crazy stuff going on with my hair today. What's going on with that? So in 10 days, if you didn't follow that, we raised over $10,000 for the History Museum down in South Bend, Indiana. A small army of dedicated, passionate heroes said, yeah, we're not from Indiana. We're not anywhere near this History Museum, but the way that Scott has described it to us, their passion, their shared interest in vintage sewing machines, the fact that they're walkers and not talkers, and also the fact that right in their neck of the woods was that incredible Singer cabinet factory that opened up in the 1860s and ran until 1955, and they were providing cabinets to people all around the world. And so that's why that particular factory is so significant, and everybody wanted to get involved, because they weren't just a Hoosier factory. They weren't just a factory based in South Bend, Indiana. They were a factory that touched the entire world because of their incredible artisan master works of cabinets that I showed in some of those recent premieres. I mean, we're talking works of art. And they were making on average 10,000 a day, 2 million a year. Had to think about that for a second, because one time I said 2 million a day, and I was like, whoa, that's too much. That's even too much for those guys down there. But amazing cabinet factory down in South Bend, Indiana, that touched the entire world. And so we had a small army of folks that I called them, basically together, and I said, I believe in this. And they right away said, hey, if you believe in it, we believe in it. The result was in 10 days, we raised over $10,000. And I'm hoping to go down there probably in the coming days and celebrate with our friends down there and honor our heroes for history again. Okay, I went on my little tangent because I just love the opportunity that we had to work with those folks down there, and the result that we were able to bring to them. But the whole point I was about to get to eventually is about Sandra Sokol's brand new baby boy being born on January the 14th, like me. Of course, I was born a long time ago. Yeah, at any rate. But the other thing that I discovered and that I was just blown away by is... Okay, I'm actually getting to the point. The other thing that I discovered and that I was blown away by is that this gentleman right here, and you can see in the shot his name, this gentleman, Joseph Dottie Oliver Jr., who happened to be the third child of a guy I've talked about a lot, J.D. Oliver, the magnate that developed the chilled plow, and that we really kind of built this entire fundraiser around. I tried to be very thoughtful about everything I did with the fundraiser so that it was pointing back to Scotland, it was pointing back to J.D. Oliver, it was hand in hand with the mission statement and the drive and the passion of my friends down at the History Museum. But why would I show you his picture? Why would I say, okay, this is Joseph Dottie Oliver Jr. There he is right there again. Good looking guy. Good looking guy. Guess when he was born? January 14th. A lot earlier than me. So somebody that's older than I am. Yeah. 1872. Okay. No, wait. 1892. I apologize. 20 years off. Rewind. 1892. Joseph Dottie Oliver Jr. was born on January 14th. So now we have three people that you all know about. We have Joseph Dottie Oliver Jr. that was born in 1892 on January 14th. We have Scott, me, born on January 14th. And then we now have my friend Sandra Sokol and her husband having a baby boy born on January 14th. Obviously 2020. Wait, 2021. Yeah. This is 2021. Yeah, it is. It's been kind of busy, folks. You know what I mean. So at any rate, happy birthday to Joseph Dottie Oliver Jr., who was born on January 14th, 1892. Happy birthday to me last month. And happy birthday to Sandra and her husband's baby boy born also last month in 2021 on January 14th. All right. Did you need to know all that? Yeah, you did, because you might get a pop quiz on it in the future. So I hope you took good notes. Yep. So we are looking at, if I bring this shot a little bit tighter again, we are looking at obviously a spectacular Western Germany engineered piece of, wow, are you kidding me? It's incredible. It's none other than a Pfaff 130-6. And again, what distinguishes a 130-6 versus a standard 130 is going to be right up here at the top of the arm, just above the pillar. That spot up there, that space is going to be wider because of the engineering of the machine. The majority of the 130-6s are going to have a very special cleated belt drive system that needs a little bit more room, so they had to make the top of that arm area above the pillar wider. So if you ever look at a 130 versus a 130-6, you're going to notice straight away that this space right up here is going to be wider across. And it's not just because it looks cool, it's because of the engineering underneath that surface that needs that space. So Sandra's 130-6 is an absolute blow your socks off powerhouse. Now let's go further back, because this particular machine would have been from the latter 1940s, early 1950s time frame. Okay? So much earlier than that, Pfaff wanted to come onto the scene with their first Zigzag sewing machine, which was the Pfaff 130. And that came out in, does anyone know? Type it in the chat without Googling it. If you know it, you know it. It's not an open book quiz here. If you know what year Pfaff introduced the original 130 model, which would have been the predecessor to this 130-6, type it in the chat. If you know that date and you get it right, and I'm only going to give you a few seconds to do that with, then you're going to be my favorite student of the day. You're going to get an A in the class, and who knows, I might even send you something special. But again, try not to Google it. If you know it, you know it. If you don't know it, you don't know it. So the date that I was looking for, and I'm going to say it real fast so that if you're cheating and trying to Google it, you can't cheat and win, because that's not what we do in this class. We want to be honest. 1932. 1932 is when the Pfaff Sewing Machine Company stepped into the light and said, we want to introduce our first Zigzag sewing machine. And it's the Pfaff 130, which in German is 130. 130. So the 130 was just a spectacular machine that stepped out and really pioneered the Pfaff Sewing Machine Company and endeared them to a lot of folks, because everybody wanted a great German engineered machine that could zigzag. And in 1932, they finally answered that call and they said, here it is. And everybody immediately, fell in love with the Pfaff 130, 130. But then they continued to innovate that model, and they eventually came out with the 130-6 later in the game, quite a bit later actually, from 1932, almost a decade later. And actually a little bit more than a decade later, now that I'm doing the math in my head, which all of you know I'm not a mathematician. Thank God for Roz and Emma, because they got my back all the time. They got my 6 when it comes to crunching numbers. They're like, Scott, don't say anything. Let us whisper the numbers to you, and then you'll be spot on. They're like my advisors, my special inner circle. If I run for president someday, I want those ladies in my corner. Yes, I do. So, any rate, over a decade later, after they first introduced that original Zigzag machine, the 130, they then started to innovate it and grow it. And they came out with machines like this 130-6. And the 130-6 in its original form was only a Zigzag machine as well. But then they added something super cool to it. If I turn the light on and don't kick the camera tripod, you'll be able to see on the back of there, sort of, and I'll come off the tripod and make it easier for you as well. You'll be able to see they added a special accessory attachment to this machine on the back. It's mounted to the rear of the machine, and then it attaches to this control center right here with control D and C, etc. And it acts almost like a mechanical version of a cam stack. You remember the recent 332 that I presented to you that is en route right now to Switzerland and moving real slow, by the way, after a week of my dear friend from Paris, France, providing updates and tracking Heidi's machine that's heading to Switzerland. It's only made it to Chicago. So if any of you want to step into my corner and get bonus points, I want you to call USPS and say, what's going on? What the heck is your problem? Why is Scott's 332 that Heidi is waiting for to make shoes in the Swiss Alps, why is it only in Chicago after a week? What's up with that? And if you want to hit that higher note too, what's up with that? Or what's up with that? However you want to do it, just do it. Call USPS right now. And if they're closed, leave a message and say, what the heck is wrong with you people? What the heck is wrong with you? Why are you delaying Scott's machine? And if you want to know, if you haven't been following that, and you want to know what the tracking number is, so you can refer to that tracking number, here is the tracking number. Where is it? There's the tracking number right there. HH005265971US. There it is. Write down that tracking number. Give USPS a call and say, what are you guys doing? Are you out of your mind? Heidi is going to come across from Switzerland, and she's going to be really upset for a wonderful Swiss gal that very seldom ever gets upset about anything. She's totally chill. But hey, you've been holding onto her machine in Chicago for almost a week. We know this because our friend from Paris, France is tracking it based on this tracking number right there. So, okay, enough is enough. I'm done with my rant, but I'm getting kind of irritated by that. So, but the point is this, that Pfaff is never content with what they did yesterday. They're always trying to improve their process. They're always trying to make things better. And if you know anything about their history, that goes all the way back to 1862, you'll know that the original founder that established the company in 1862 in Kaiserslautern, Germany, he was driven by innovation from the very beginning when he started building machines in 1862, because he had first of all been what? And this may give you a clue as to why, when Herr Obermeister set this machine up for me, why did he have my harmonica sitting over there on the bed of this machine? Well, it may have been because he knew I was going to put on that cool kazoo music and jam with those dudes, but it also was to point out again that the founder of the Pfaff sewing machine company, George Michael Pfaff, who lived from 1823 until 1893, not terribly long, although I guess when you're living back in the 1800s, if you can make it to being 70 years old, that's not horribly bad. But he was a musical instrument maker to begin with. That's what he did. And then he eventually stepped into the space and started exploring the idea of making sewing machines. And right around 1885, he opened a sewing machine shop in London. Did y'all know that? his roots aren't strictly in Germany. He really started to grow this company and expand it and innovate it in the United Kingdom, in London. And George Pfaff was actually the second son of the founder. And he took over the management of the company after his father's death in 1893 and expanded it even further. And as they say, the rest is history. The rest is history. Because Pfaff is now a company that is known worldwide and respected and loved. And they're one of the few companies that continued to develop machines that were quality, that were built to last all the way into the 1990s. Matter of fact, I owned for quite a while a Pfaff 1475 CD. And that company, that machine made by this company was made in the 1990s. And it was still built, because I took this machine apart and looked at the innards. It was still built with the same thoughtfulness that machines like the one you're looking at on this workbench right now were built back in the late 1940s, early 1950s. So I have a lot of respect for Pfaff because they stuck with it a lot longer than some of the other sewing machine makers. And not to beat up Singer, but Singer is one of those that used to be committed to that. If you ever saw my landing page video on the YouTube channel, the one where I take you on a tour of the Singer plant in Scotland, and you look at the way that the thoughtfulness that they were building into their machines in Scotland, it's just like, wow! A number of you contacted me after seeing that video on my YouTube channel for the first time and said, I always respected my Singers, but I respect them at a level now that is off the charts after seeing the incredible craftsmanship and the thoughtfulness that went into those machines that they built back in the day. But Singer stepped away from that, I'm sad to say, much sooner than Pfaff did. And there may be different opinions on when did Singer step away. When did some of those other makers that are household names step away from quality? But I can tell you one thing, Pfaff stuck with it longer than any other maker that I know of. With the exception maybe of Bernina. Bernina is another one. Juki is another one that I do have a high level of respect for. But as far as household machines that can sew at a light industrial level, Pfaff cannot be beat. They just can't be. And that's why when Sandra and I started talking, I was like, okay, based on what I understand and the fact that you want to also have embroidery capabilities, this is the machine that I'm recommending, and this is what I'd like to prepare for you. And that's how we move forward. That's my process. A lot of you will reach out to me and say, Scott, where's your website with all your machines? You got the best machines in the world. I want to look at what machines you have for sale. I don't have a website. When I get done with a machine that isn't already spoken for, I present it usually on Facebook, and then I premiere it on the YouTube channel, on this YouTube channel. And that's where folks learn about it, and it's usually, that machine is gone usually within about 24 hours or less. A couple of them have gone in like 2 hours or less. And if someone reaches out to me and they describe to me, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing for sewing, this is my mission, I'm going to have a small business, I'm going to be doing it as a hobbyist, whatever it is, then I will match them with a machine from my personal collection, because all of my machines in my personal collection are original owner machines. And if you're brand new to vintage sewing machines and you're like, okay, what's the big deal about that? That means that that person that bought that machine brand new is the person that I bought the machine from. So they were the original owner when that machine was brand new. I bought it from them, and then I'll offer that machine sometimes from my personal collection to one of you that machine fits your sewing needs, and you'll become the third owner. I'm really not, I mean, I own it, but I'm kind of a surrogate, because inevitably that machine is going to be called on. Somebody's going to want that machine, and I'm going to say, okay, yeah, okay. Kind of like recently with the fundraiser we did for the History Museum folks down in Indiana. I had a bunch of Slantomatics that I had been contacted about those models all the time, and I would never sell them. I loved them. I do love them. I still love them. But I ended up offering them for donation, and all of them went in less than 24 hours. They were gone. So that's how I operate. So to save time and you asking, where's my website? I don't have one. My website is this YouTube channel. My website is sharing that premiere announcement of that machine for sale on Facebook with my friends there. And that's how you'll want to follow me, unless you want to just reach out and say, this is what I'm going to be doing. And I'll say, okay, these are the models that I would recommend. And I can prepare one of them. I can fully restore one of them for you so it'll meet all of your needs. That's what I did with Heidi from Switzerland when she reached out. She described to me her plan to make shoes in the Swiss Alps. And I looked at my personal collection and I said, the 332 is what I would recommend. And that's the machine that I'd like to prepare for you. That's the one that's stuck down in Chicago. Ah! So, yeah, any rate. Oh, gosh. Okay, another little pop quiz for you folks, because I know you love learning in this classroom. But we also like doing goofy things like jamming with kazoos, because it's a playroom too. But for a second quiz question for you, I talked about the fact that Pfaff introduced the Model 30 for the first time in 1932. That was their first Zigzag model that they had ever introduced in the U.S. market in particular. Was that the first Zigzag in the world? I can tell you no. So I want you to type in the chat if you know who came up with the first Zigzag style sewing machine. What year was it? Who was the person? If you know that, and you're the first one to type it correctly into the chat, I want you to flag that for me, and I'm going to send you something special. Plus, you'll get an A in the class for the day. Plus, you're going to be my favorite student of the month. I don't think I've ever said that before. So type it in the chat. I'll give you a few seconds as I get a drink of water, and then I'm going to tell you the answer to that question. Plus, I'll put on a little bit more music while we're doing that. So the first one I played that I was jamming with on my harmonica was called Kazoom. This next one is called Kalimba. Kalimba. Kalumba. Kalimba. Oh yeah. I've always wanted to do that on a premiere. Again, you either know it or you don't know it. If you end up Googling it, then be honest enough to say, I Googled it. When the music stops, I'm going to give you the answer. We're almost there. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So, the answer to the question as far as the individual that came up with the first official Zigzag sewing machine and actually received a patent for it. So all the Zigzags that followed were built off of this model that received a patent. That was none other than, and we always talk about the guys back in the day being the inventors. They're the ones, those men were the smarty pants dudes that came up with all the innovations in our vintage sewing machine space. Not the case with the Zigzag sewing machine, because it was developed by none other than Helen Augusta Blanchard. Helen Augusta Blanchard. Yeah, a lady. And she did it back in 1873. So if anyone wants to get extra points in the class today and do the math, okay, how much time elapsed between 1873 and 1932 when Pfaff finally introduced their first Zigzag machine, the Class 130, the 130 that everyone talks about, which was the predecessor to Sandra's that's on the workbench right now, the 130-6. Okay? Anyone wants to type that in the chat? And I haven't done the math, so my fact checkers will be Roz and Emma. If you post an answer, or if they post it, I know it's going to be right because they're really good at math. But tell me how much time elapsed between 1873 when Helen Augusta Blanchard developed the very first Zigzag sewing machine and got a patent for it, and when Pfaff finally introduced their 130 in 1932. The other thing I'll tell you while you're typing that in the chat, and when my good friends Roz and Emma are fact-checking your answer to see if it's correct, is if you ever want to take a look at this actual first Zigzag machine that Helen Augusta Blanchard developed in 1873, and it received a patent, you can go to the Smithsonian out in Washington, D.C., and actually see that machine on display. Yes, that's on my bucket list. I want to go out to the Smithsonian and see that machine and any other things that they've got that are sewing vintage related. Anyone want to join me on that trip? If you do, type in the chat road trip. Type in the chat road trip, and I will pick you up in your state, and we'll head out to Washington, and we will converge. I love that word, don't you? We will converge on Washington. I'll tell you one thing, President Biden, we're coming, baby. And we'll probably visit you in the White House as well. So set out all your crumpets and your fancy silverware and everything. And I know Roz, Emma, others will probably join in on that. We're gonna probably come out there in a little minibus. And we don't want to be delayed at the gate. So just let your guards know, let your Secret Service people know, Scott, the cow country dude, and his gang is going to come out there and visit you because we're heading towards the Smithsonian. So if you can pave the way, President Biden, sir, that would be cool. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. All right. So hopefully you posted that answer. I'm not looking at the chat. I know that Roz or Emma are all over it, and they're like, nope, you got it wrong, or yep, you got it right. And I trust these ladies implicitly. So if you got it, if you were the first one, highlight it for me, or Emma or Roz can shoot me a note and say, yep, so-and-so got it. They're going to reach out, and then I'll send you something special, okay? All right. Blah, 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 blah. So, did I cover everything so far? Yes, I did. So far. I think. Maybe. Okay. So, let's come off the tripod briefly. And I just want to walk you around this machine a little bit. And also, I'm eventually going to show you how to wind a bobbin on this because it's a little bit, I wouldn't say it's tricky, but it's a little bit unique. A little bit unique. Yeah. So let me come out on this shot. So this, what we're looking at right now off the tripod, we're a little bit closer. Guten Tag, Herr Obermeister, wie geht es Ihnen? Ganz gut? Ja? Ich auch. Ja, genau. Fantastisch. Ja, das Maschine ist sehr wirksam. Ja, nicht so schön, but sehr wirksam. Ja, genau. Richtig. Fantastisch. Ja. Oh, entschuldigen Sie bitte. I have to move you. Okay, I move him over there so he's safe. So this again is the 130-6. Again, probably around the 1940s, early 1950s is when this would have come on the scene. It originally came on the scene as a different version of the 130 that was only a zigzag really by design. But then they came out with a really cool embroidery kit for it, which we'll look at a little bit closer during this premiere, and we'll even take a peek at it right now. But the control layout in this is fairly straightforward. Right here we obviously have the feed dog drop. Over here we have stitch length. And most machines that we're accustomed to seeing on this channel, whenever you want to sew in reverse or back tack, you're always going to move that stitch length controller all the way to the top to sew in reverse. Not the case with this 130-6. You've got to move that stitch length controller all the way to that bottom area. And there's going to be a little bit of a range where you're going to be able to have some stitch length variation in reverse as well, which I think is really super cool. So you've got a stitch length range on this 130-6 of probably comparable to a Singer. It's going to be right around 6 stitches per inch all the way down to 30 stitches per inch. And during this premiere, we're going to be using a span of that, probably when we do the embroidery stitches using the embroidery kit that's mounted to the rear of Sandra's machine. We're going to be right around 1, way down in that bottom range. And then when we do most of the heavy duty sew-offs, we're going to be up in the 5 range. So that we have a little bit longer. We might vary that a little bit and kind of come down and get into the satin range for some of those, so you can see you know, timing is so essential when you're doing satin range type sewing. And if you're brand new to sewing, satin range is when you get into those super teeny tiny little stitches, probably somewhere between 25 to 30 stitches per inch. That's really, really tiny, really tiny. So yeah, we're going to be doing a little bit of that as well, kind of just having some fun and doing that sort of thing. So this right here, this control in the center does a couple of things. One, it's going to give you stitch width control. And as you've seen in other premieres, this control right here by Pfaff is identified as Control D. And so you're going to turn this to 0 if you want to sew a straight stitch. And then you're going to go somewhere between 1 and 5 if you want to sew. Actually, see if that goes to 5. I always forget if it's 5 or 4. Hold on a second. Yeah, it's kind of almost 5. It's more 4 than 5. So somewhere between 1 and 4 is where you're going to be when you want to do zigzagging. And again, that would have been the original function of this 130-6. It was strictly a zigzag machine. And this was before they started really stepping into the realm of building those incredible cam stacks like you saw on Heidi's machine. And those cam stacks, again, on the various models similar to that, is going to be the model 332 like Heidi's, the model 230, and the model 338. And that's why they all share the same stitch wheel, the same stitch card. All three of those models that I just named. So before they had that cam stack technology perfected, they said, we want to be able to offer more than just a zigzag. That was a big deal back in 1932, but a lot of time has passed. And so they came up with an embroidery kit that could be mounted to the 130-6. And that's what this particular machine has. And the way it works, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it or not, but the way it works is from the embroidery kit on the back, it runs a staff bar across the bottom of the arm, and then it connects to basically to the Control D, and it's by a pin release right here. When you don't want the embroidery function engaged, you have it like it is right now with the pin in that notch. When you take that pin out by pulling this out and rotate it down, then all of a sudden there's a little, it's going to be hard to see it, but you can see that little track right there on the bottom. See that little track? There's going to be a little pin from this part right here that when we allow that to release, it's going to seat in. It's going to seat in that little notch. And then that's going to allow that to be actuated by the mechanical function of that embroidery kit. So if we don't want it engaged, we've got to pull this out and put it in that little notch. Now we've disengaged that embroidery kit function. So you're probably saying, okay, you're talking a lot about this embroidery kit. Are we ever going to actually see the thing? Well, maybe. Yeah, we will. Silly guys. So let's look at it from this angle first. You can see that this part of the embroidery kit, which is basically, if you look at it straight down, see how it's basically, it's a single piece and it mounts to the rear of the machine, then it connects to that Control D. And you've got a Control A and a Control B that you have to set when you do various stitch offs that we're going to look at on this YouTube channel, where I posted videos with time-lapse still shots showing the entire stitch wheel for single needle sewing for a 130-6 like this, and then also dual needle sewing as well. And I posted those as videos that people can access, so that if they don't have the resource of a stitch card similar to this, trying to get a hold of it, they don't have a resource of a stitch card like this. And this stitch card is not for this machine. This would be for like Heidi's machine, the 332 or the 230 or the 338. But some of the things are going to be comparable. So if they don't have a stitch card, or stitch wheel, some people call it, then they can go to the YouTube channel, my YouTube channel here, and they can pull up those videos. They can search Pfaff 130 stitch wheel, and then you'll see those two videos, one that covers single needle sewing, one that covers dual needle sewing. And the difference between this 130-6 when you're setting it up for embroidery stitching or creative stitching or decorative stitching or fancy stitching, however you want to refer to it, you're only going to have 3 set points, where when you're setting up like Heidi's 332, you're going to have 4 set points. So here you're going to have A, B, C on a 332 or a 230 or a 338. You're going to have 4 set points, A, B, C, and D. Okay? And then remember me pointing out when we were talking about Heidi's machine, I pointed out several times that if you set all of those settings on that stitch wheel, but you forget to turn on that Control E on top of the 332, it's not going to work. Because the Control E on top of the 332 and those other models that I named as well is going to be your on switch for the cam function of those types of machines. The on switch for this machine to basically turn on the creative function of that embroidery kit on the rear of the machine is going to be this little doodad right here. Right now it's off. Again, you would pull it out and let that pin go in if you want to turn it on. Okay? But again, you're going to have Control A. You'll see that on the screen when we start setting some stitches up to sew them. And then you're going to have Control B. And then finally, you're going to have Control C, which, as you remember from the other class, is going to be this control right here that lets you set needle position. Okay? So that's all you're going to set on this 130-6. You're going to set Control A, B, and then finally, you're going to set Control C right here. You're not going to do anything with Control D because when we engage this again and that pin goes into that little slot that I showed you, that embroidery kit on the rear of this machine is going to be manipulating and controlling Control D. Does that make sense? If that makes sense and I did a fairly good job of explaining it, type in the chat, smiley face, thumbs up, something like that so that I can get that feedback and know that I've done a good job. Okay, would you do that for me, please? Do it now, please. Do it now. Take my hand if you want to live. Yeah, don't even type in the chat who I'm trying to do because I am horrible at impersonations. Yes, I am. But at any rate, that's kind of the quick layout of this machine. It's not a super complicated machine. I think that's why people love the Class 130 series that Pfaff put out because it really is just super easy to operate the machine. And the cool thing about this 130-6 is along with that embroidery kit on the rear of the machine that I already showed you, it also comes with this super cool spotlight that you saw kind of shining on Herr Obermeister. And the way you turn it on is with this little ring right here. There's no switch, there's no anything. You just rotate this little ring. Kind of here, we'll kind of do it like that so you can see it go on and off. Rotate this, off. Rotate it back. On. Off. On. Off. I know, Herr Obermeister. Spielen zu viel. That means playing too much. Yeah, that's me. That's me. All right. Well, there you go. So let me get back on the tripod and what I'm going to do next. Actually, what I could do next real quick is just show you some of the sew-offs I've already done off camera. Yeah. So off camera, I did 2 layers of elk hide. I wanted to kind of test this out. I did a real teeny tiny stitch, kind of that satin range that I talked about, and then more of a standard stitch. And if you're brand new to this channel, elk hide is chemically processed. So going through 2 layers of this, about 10 ounces of leather, it's a lot tougher than you would think. Because as soon as you chemically process a leather, it galvanizes that leather and it makes it super strong. It makes it very, very pierce resistant. So the piercing threshold is incredibly high in this elk hide. That's why I love to use it. Then also off camera, I did some of this vegan style leather, which is a combination of leather and vinyl. So right away, with vinyl, it's going to goof around with stitching and stuff and make it a challenge. But off camera, this 130-6 had no difficulty at all getting that job done. And then I did a bunch of decorative sew-offs as well. I wanted to kind of goof around with the embroidery kit, so I did some of these stitches using my time-lapse settings on the YouTube channel. And a couple times I goofed up a little bit there. I kind of started doing a zigzag and then, oh, wait, okay. And then I kind of moved over and finished it off, so I got it eventually. Yeah, I did. And again, you'll see in this premiere today, the way I kind of do it is I wrote a little ABC column and then based on the stitch wheel that's on my YouTube channel that I did the time-lapse photos of, I write down my 3 settings, ABC. Again, there's only 3, there's not 4 settings, like on Heidi's machine, the 332. So it's a little bit simpler, yeah. And then I also sewed some protected full grain leather. I was wanting to show being able to regulate speed. A lot of people, when you tell them a machine like this 130-6 that's going to be heading to Texas, when you tell them it has a 1.3 amp motor, they're like, panic, fear, because that's a lot of power. That's more than 2 times the power of a Singer 201-2 or Singer 1591. That's a meaty motor. And so I wanted to show by doing this sew off camera that you can meter out that power, you can control it. And there's nothing lightweight at all about 2 layers of protected full grain leather. Protected full grain leather, like elk hide, is processed and prepared in a certain way. It's super slippery and it's super tough to get through it. So to be able to sew, and at this level, at that intricacy, really, to me, convinced me, okay, Sandra's going to have no problem controlling the speed on this machine. It's not going to overpower her. Does that make sense? So, and then also I started with this green thread originally, but then I saw, I'm not going to have enough to do the stitching off camera and also get through a premiere. So I then rethreaded it with this thread that I get from my good friends at Joann Fabrics, this Americana quilting thread. And I like this thread a lot. Again, it does tend to be a little bit wiry as far as picking up static. And it's not quite as strong in some of my experiences as the Coates & Clark. But for the price and for overall sewing, it's a fabulous choice. And this is what it looks like on top. To do a shameless plug for the folks at Joann Fabrics, if you want to check it out. If you go to Walmart or a retailer like that and you get Coates & Clark, you're going to be paying probably about $3, somewhere in that range, per spool. If you go to Joann Fabrics and you pick up one like this, their regular price is 99 cents. You sometimes can get it for less than that. So I love affordability. Yes, I do. So that's why I go with my friends at Joann Fabrics. But when I was doing the stitch offs off camera, I messed around with a number of different ones using this really cool green embroidery thread. And that's really the thing to point out is the needle that I'm going to be using today is going to be a size 100 Schmetz needle, general purpose, universal needle. When I showed these, it was on a smaller gauge needle because I really wanted to see how close I could get to perfecting them with Sandra's machine. So I used a much smaller needle. It was a size 80. And I used this special embroidery style thread that's designed for sewing machines and got I think a beautiful result, don't you? And then I also did this stitch off as well with some more decorative and then also basic utility type stitching on top of that. You can kind of go along with me up through there. You can see the lock stitch is just as spot on. So I de-emphasize the importance of needles because I just immediately gravitate towards my Schmetz universal needles. I use those quite a bit. I also go to the organ needles sometimes as well, but when you're looking to sew something like this, let's say it's going to be for a product of yours or a garment or something like that, picking the appropriate type thread and the size needle can really step up that pattern output and give it even more of a finished look than what you might see during this premiere today because of my choice of thread and my choice of the needle. So I just wanted to say that, so in your mind, if you go, well, they didn't look quite as good as those ones that Scott did off camera, that's why. Different needle, different thread, and you're going to get a different result. So there you go. Yeah, I think I covered pretty much everything. So the ones I did off camera is this right here. I'm going to throw those to the back, and then we're going to start to put this machine to work a little bit. And yes, I got a comment from someone the other day that I shared a picture of something where they said, holy mackerel, you got a lot of walking feet. And I do. I've got a lot of walking feet and roller feet, and occasionally I will have a customer ask about that, or if I'm preparing a machine, kind of like I did for Heidi, then I'll include either a walking foot or a roller foot depending on how they're going to be sewing, what they're going to be sewing, etc. So I got all kinds of things. All right, let's get back on the tripod. Let's go ahead and get our shot back in so we can look at Sandra's 130-6. I'll plug the camera in. I'll probably get another drink of water. And we're going to start to put this machine to work a little bit. Yeah. So let me do this. Let me put on a song, and then we're going to be popping over to the YouTube channel on my computer over here to look at that stitch wheel that I did still shots of, so we can see what the settings are that we're going to use today for some of these stitch offs. And we're not going to do a ton of them, but we'll do some for sure. And this one is called My Dog is Happy. Yeah. So a shout out to some of my favorite dogs that watch this channel regularly and apparently really like the sound of my voice. So I'm going to give a shout out to Vito or Vito? It's V-I-T-O, I think. Sonny's dog, that huge horse-like dog out in the great state of Pennsylvania. Yeah, that's where she is. Yeah, pretty sure, 90% sure. Yeah. And also a shout out to Apollo out in Michigan, who belongs to Roz. So those are two of my regular watchers from the canine world. I don't know, maybe I have cats too. If anyone has a cat that watches premieres with you and really seems to tune into my voice or something like that, type it in the chat. I'd like to know so I can give them a shout out too. Just a little water helps a lot. Boy, that helps a lot. All right. I'm going to have the shot kind of like this so you can see me doing some of the settings, and I'll move that green spool of thread that I use for some of those decorative sew-offs so that you can kind of see those controls a little bit better. Matter of fact, I'll do that right now. But remind me, I want to do a winding of the bobbin so I can show you what that looks like too. All right, let me move the camera over towards the computer. So again, if you're searching the channel and you say, Scott mentioned that that time lapse that he did for the Pfaff 130 that has that embroidery kit, like this 130-6, this is what you want to search. I think if you just search it, Pfaff 130 stitch pattern wheel, something like that, and you can see this is from 2019. Is when I posted this. That's not when I originally did the work on this. I think it was about 4 or 5 years earlier than that. And then I originally was offering it, I think where people could, they could pay a small nominal fee and then they would have access to it. And then I just thought, I don't want to do that. I just want to give it to the world. Because there are folks that do not have a stitch wheel and they're not enjoying the full benefits of that embroidery kit, that 130-6, and I want to give it to them. So I ended up reposting it. I had to do that because the old one was kind of, you couldn't release it so that it wasn't set up as a paid video. So I recopied it and then I reposted it in March of 2019. And the same thing is true of the twin needle sewing one as well. But that's how you'll search it, and then you'll find, you know, it opens up on the screen, kind of like I'm going to show you right now, and then you'll see the time lapse between the different stitches. Let me kind of lock it right there once the camera stops moving. Please stop moving. And of course I put music to it, me being a lover of music, duh. So when you pull this up on the channel, it's going to kind of open like this. I'll turn this up a little bit because I like this music. So there you're kind of seeing the opening shot. It shows you the controls. And then if I pause it right here, you can kind of see how I did the time lapse. I did the time lapse basically showing the stitch output and then the settings. Let me adjust this a little bit. The settings that you're going to need to make for control areas A, B, and C in order to try to get that stitch output. And of course, remember to also release that little pin so that it goes into that slot. Otherwise, you can do all the other settings and it's going to be in the off position. It's not going to work. So that first stitch you can kind of see. We would set control A to 5. We would set control B to 1, and then finally we would put the needle position in position 3, which is going to be a far right needle position. Position 3 is going to be with that control C all the way at the bottom position, which is on the stitch card. The original stitch card is going to show you that it's position 3. Position 2 would be a center needle position, and then position 1 would be a far left needle position. So this one is going to be a far right needle position with A and B on 5 and 1. It's quite simple and quite straightforward, I think. And yes, it was, if you're wondering, yes, it was very time consuming to do this, because I basically had a piece of white paper and I had the stitch card laying down on the ground with the camera totally inverted, so the camera was basically shooting straight down at the ground. And then I would have to take a picture of, say, this position, and then I would have to adjust the stitch card to the next setting. So that would be the next setting. Then I would have to take a picture of that. And then I would have to move the stitch card window again to the next stitch, and so on and so forth. And I had to do that for all of the stitches on this single needle stitch card. And then I did the same thing for the dual needle stitch card as well. So it was a sacrificial act because it was very time consuming, but at the same time I know that a lot of folks have benefited from it. And hopefully if you weren't aware that it was there, you'll be able to benefit from it as well now that you know that and know how to search it. So this is kind of an interesting stitch right here that we might try out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, on this little pad of paper, kind of like I showed you I did off camera, I'm going to create a column A, column B, and a column C, and I'm going to mark down that we want to try this stitch, which is, I don't know how I describe that. It's kind of almost like a starburst or something like that on top of each other. It's kind of cool. So I'm going to write down for A, we need to set it on 4. For B, we need to set it on 3. And for C, we need to set it on 2. And the thing I'll tell you is, from working with a lot of these 130-6s, the setting for B is sometimes going to have to be modified. You may, if you don't get the action that you want, setting it on 3, you might have to move it to 2 or to 1. Because it's a sensitive, control B with this mechanical embroidery kit is a little bit of a sensitive setting, and sometimes you got to tweak that area a little bit. A is usually pretty solid, C is spot on, but B you might have to tweak a little bit on that to get the result that you want. So we're going to try sewing that one, which I think is super cool, 4, 3, and 2, and let's look at some of the other ones. And you don't have to play it and wait for it to go all the way around. I'll kind of show you what I mean. I'll put my mouse over that little point right here where you can see, and then I'm going to drag it a little bit, and then we can kind of look at some of the other stitches as well and decide if we want to try something else. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? I like that one. Let me pause it. So we're going to try this one as well. Our control A setting will be 5. Our B setting will be 2. And then our C setting will also be 2. So 5, 2, 2. Let's find 1 or 2 more that we can try. that's interesting. I like that one too. So that'll be 612. 612. Why don't we just pick one more? We'll do 4 of them. Although I think my material is quite a bit larger than that. That's going to be similar, but that has a little bit different design to it, doesn't it? I'd like to try that one too. That's going to be 622. 622. So that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches. Why don't we do just one more to end up with 5 decorative type stitches? It's kind of basic, but it's kind of cool too. Why don't we try this one? And I'm sure that as you're watching this live premiere, there would be other choices that you would make, and that's really the wonder and the beauty of having this on the internet, where anyone can access this to look at these stitch settings, because they're going to pick totally different stitches than I will. Plus, I'm trying to be a little bit more expeditious in picking them so we can move forward and actually sew them. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 2 is the setting for this particular stitch. So the ones we selected, I'll just kind of put it in front of the stitch wheel for a second. The ones we selected to sew, we picked a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. There we go. So the ones we selected, again, stitch 1, we're going to set A to 4, B to 3, and then our needle position is going to be in the center position, in position 2. Our next one is going to be 5 on A, 2 on B, and same needle position, center position. I didn't even notice that I just didn't mean to, but I picked all of them with the same Control C point. I'm just noticing that. That's totally weird. So then the next one is 6, 1, 2. So A control is 6, B control is going to be 1. Again, if we get a weird result where it doesn't actuate properly, then you can always tweak the B control to another number, and you're still going to get the same stitch pattern. And then our next one is 6, 2, 2, and then our final one is 1, 2, 2. Yeah. So let's go back over to the machine now. I'm going to grab my little pad of paper, and I'm going to try to get the shot so we can see all 3 of those controls, and you're going to be able to see how we set them. Which, you know, it's not brain surgery, folks, but the Control A setting is a little bit unique. So we'll focus on you really understanding the Control A, because it has to be initiated in a certain way, and I want you to do it right so you don't break anything. Okay, how about a song while we're setting this up? So my dog is happy. The next one we're going to do, and I immediately, when I look at this song and I hear this title, I immediately think of Sonny and Craig out in the great state of Pennsylvania, because, yeah, no, because it's called Good Morning. Good Morning. And I think of Sonny being all cheery and chipper and all that good stuff. So here we go. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at these controls and remove any fear, anxiousness, or apprehension. So first of all, Control A right here. Control A right here. The way you change Control A is you have to, almost like a vending machine, the old style vending machines where you would put coins in the little tray and then you would push the tray in and then pull the tray back out. Some of you that are closer to my age are saying, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Some of you younger people are saying, what? But anyway, just think of it like you're dropping coins into a tray. You slide that tray in because you want to get something out of that machine, maybe, I don't know, maybe a toy or something. and then you pull that tray back out, and then boom, it took your money, and you get what you paid for, hopefully. So you slide this from right to left, and don't let it go. Bring it back gently, because there's a bunch of spring and mechanical components in this embroidery kit, and we don't want to break them. So right now you can't see, but we're on 1, so we have to go all the way to 4. So you bring it over. Now we're in 2, 3, 4. Now we have to set Control B, and the setting that the stitch wheel is telling us is 3. So we've got to move it from 0 all the way over to 3. And then last but certainly not least, we need to set our needle position. And I think it's already on 2 based on what I'm seeing. Let me see here. Yeah, we're already on position 2, so this is our needle position. And again, think of it like this. Position 1 is at the top. It's going to give us a far left needle position. Position 2 is in the center. Position 3 all the way at the bottom is going to give us a far right needle position. Okay, are we done? If we're done, type done. If we have one more thing we need to do, if we want to use the cam features on this machine to turn them on, then type in there as best as you're able what we need to do. Okay, go ahead and do that now. Please, please. And I will hum while you're doing it. All right, that's enough time. So if you said we need to pull that little doodad out right there, that is actually a little bit below the camera shot, which I need to correct. Otherwise, I'm pointing at something that y'all can't see. Okay, so we need to pull this out so that that pin is not in that little track, and the little pin can then go in and go into that little track that's on the mechanism that feeds into the embroidery kit. And again, because it's kind of sticking out there and it needs to eventually get into that track, we're going to have to make sure that, you know, as we launch into it, that it's going to be actuating properly, because there might be a slight delay as it's getting into a position. We can cheat a little bit and kind of move it. There we go. So yeah, when you engage that, if this is in a position, this swivel point where the pin isn't in that little track, you can just gently turn this stitch width knob like I just did, which is Control D, and get that pin to go into that little track, which I just did. So now it's locked in place. Okay? And then the other thing I did off camera is I set our stitch length, because it was way at the top, I set our stitch length down much, much lower, so that we're going to get a much shorter, more compact, more defined stitch, hopefully. Don't you love my vote of confidence? Well, hopefully that's going to happen, but I ain't going to guarantee it. I ain't going to sign on the dotted line. Nope, ain't going to happen. So we are doing a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches. So my saw-off piece that I cut originally, which was huge, I'm going to go ahead and cut it down a ways. So we have less material to contend with. Blah. All right, so let me get that material in place, and then I will try to remember to change the camera angle, because that might prove helpful. You never know. And I'm using just a standard cotton polyester blend material, and then I have a little bit of a filler or a stiffener on the inside to try to give us a little bit better definition when it comes to the stitches that we're going to do using this embroidery kit. Okay, and what I can do is I can kind of come out on the shot a little bit. Like this. That way you can kind of see what's happening down at the needle, but you can also see these mechanisms when they are engaged with these different sew-offs. You can see them doing different things. Yeah, different things. Okay, so let's do this. Let's try sewing this first one. Again, I don't even remember what it looks like, but we'll see what we get and not throw a fit. And we'll sew off on this first one. And again, if it doesn't actuate properly, I may adjust my control B to a setting adjacent to the one that the stitch wheel recommends. Okay, so my take-up arm is all the way up. Needle is on the down track. Lighting is good. All right, let's give this a try. Let's see what we get. All right, here we go. Actually, I'm going to check my needle control C position. Give me 1 second here. I didn't adjust it, so I just wanted to make sure that I was correct, that it was in the correct position. Okay, let's give this a try. Here we go. Good. Okay, so the first one we did is this right here. I don't know if you can see that. You can't see that in the shot because we're too far out. You're like, we have really good eyes, Scott. And those of you that wear reading glasses are saying, yeah, my reading glasses are a lot better than yours, dude. But this is what we just sewed. It's kind of groovy, huh? Yeah. We come out on the shot again, so you can... Wasn't that kind of fun to watch those controls? That's kind of why I set the camera like this. Kind of fun to see those controls do their dance. I know a lot of you commented about that when I presented Heidi's machine. You thought that was super cool, watching those controls do their dance. So we'll do that again with this model 130-6. And again, take into account I'm using a much larger needle than you typically would use if you're looking to do decorative fancy type stitching like this. I'm using a size 100, and you typically would be using a size 70 or 80. So imagine these even more defined if we went with a smaller universal type needle. And Schmetz does make a wide range of universal needles and sizes, so you don't have to go with the size that I'm using during the premiere. You can go with a totally different size and get a totally different result, which is good. All right, press your foot down. I think I pretty much have that straight, sort of, kind of. So the next thing we're going to sew is going to require a change setting on A and B. C is good to go now. We don't have to do anything with that because I ended up picking stitches that all have the same setting for C. So what we're going to change it to now, I'll kind of show you. Oops, I just kicked a thing. First one we did was 432. Now we're going to be doing 522. 522. So we're going to be changing control A and control B. So again, if we want to go to 5, I should only have to push this one more time. And it's probably not absolutely essential or needed to do it, but I'm going to zero out B as we're making this change. So I'm going to bring B down to 0, and then I'm going to change A from 4 to 5. Again, move it over and don't let it go. Just bring it back gently. Okay, so now we're on 5. Now we're going to change B to 2. And we're going to leave C alone because we already have that set. Okay? So let's go ahead and do the next stitch off that we picked off of that stitch wheel on my channel. All right, here we go. I can't believe I actually stopped in the up position again. That is like unprecedented. It truly is. Yeah, this is going to be, it's going to have a similar look. Obviously, it's a slightly different stitch pattern design, clearly, but it's going to have it's going to be a little bit more long and stretched out. And again, if we used a smaller needle and we used embroidery thread for a sewing machine, it would look really, really different. So that's the one we just did. We did the first row on the far right, and then we just did that second one right there. So again, with this being the very early technology of Pfaff saying we want the 130 to do more than just a zigzag, they really did quite an excellent job, I think. They really did quite an excellent job. And again, this is all mechanical. It's all mechanical. There's no cams specifically built into this mechanism. It's a combination of springs and gears and mechanisms that manipulate that control D, and obviously you know, it kind of steers it. It steers it in what to do. So. All right, so let me give that a clip. Okay, we'll clip that, get those threads cut off. My garbage can is like a country mile away. Give me a second, I'm going to move this over. I feel like a basketball player. I'm like having to shoot a basket in order to get it in the garbage can. And I'm not a bad basketball player. I mean, not that I would put myself up against anyone that really knows what they're doing, but I'm a fairly good shot. All right, so let me get this back in position. We're going to make our changes. So we've done 2 so far. We did this one right here, 432. We did this one, 522. Now we're going to set it to 612 to get our next stitch output, 612. So we're going to have to change, obviously, Control A, and we're going to have to change Control B. And what I would do again is just kind of my habit. I would 0 out Control B, and then I would change Control A to 6. And again, just slide it over, kind of like a vending machine, and then release it, okay? And then we'll set Control B over to 1. And Control C we're going to leave alone because we already set that one. All right, so let's try this next one and see what we get. All right, here we go. Yeah, it's one of those situations. Let's try that. There we go. And you may have seen me make an adjustment real quick over here. It didn't actuate on the 3 setting that we, or excuse me, on the 2 setting that we had picked. So I ended up, oh, I see why. Okay, so I had actually had B on 3 and it didn't actuate, and that's because it should have been on 2, so that was my mistake. So 612 should have been our setting, and I had somehow put 613. So, duh, there we go. Alright, so let me go ahead and spin this around. We'll take a look at this one. Again, it's going to have a similar look, but slightly different. Slightly different as you look at them kind of side by side. And again, we're not going to have quite the definition, the clarity of the pattern, because we're using a rather large needle, and we're using standard quilting thread. We're not using embroidery style thread. So let's get that over there. Boy, that's a lot easier. Don't have to shoot a basket. Yay. Okay, so let's look. Here we go. Oh, that's kind of fun. I like the way that presents, actually. It kind of kind of go like this. We'll kind of look at it like this. Yeah, this third one I like. I like the look of that a lot. I like the look of that. So you can see what we've sewn so far with our 3 patterns. They're all going to have some common traits, but they're all going to be different. And again, they would present differently and with greater definition if we use a smaller needle, 70 or 80 size, versus the 100 size that I'm sewing with right now. And also maybe considered a different type of thread that was more designed for embroidery output. But I think those are spectacular, don't you? I could see those being on a garment, or in Sandra's case, maybe on a baby blanket or something like that with some real pretty thread. So yeah, spot on. I like it. I love it. All right, so let's come on the shot again. So we're all set for the next. I'm like in South. I was like far enough out to be in South Bend, Indiana there for a second. What's up with that? Okay, so let me get that back underneath the presser foot again, so we're ready for our next stitch, and we'll set our next stitch pattern. And I've been kind of crossing these out so I don't get goofy and end up doing the same one again. So I've got this one crossed out. We already did that. 432, 522, 612, not 613 like I originally had it. So yeah, if you goof up on that, you might see that, hey, nothing's happening. Well, I missed it by 1 number. There go those reading glasses again, huh? So the next one we're going to do is really close. It's going to be 622. So again, all we're changing really is A and B, because C is constant all the way through all of these sew-offs because of what we picked. Okay? All right, so let's do that. We'll set Control A is already on 6, duh. So all we're going to change really is Control B to... Oh, I see what I did now. I messed up on the last one. The last one, I ended up having Control B on 2, which is where it is as we speak. Control B is on 2, and it was supposed to be for the last pattern on 1. So let me move it to 1 and see if we get a different stitch pattern. So I'm going to basically rewind and go to this one. We've already done this one. That's the one we just looked at. So I'm going to cross that off. And we're going to change our B to 1, which is where it should have been on the last one. See that? I told you it's simple and I still goofed it up. Okay, so let's try this one again and see if we get, excuse me, a different, excuse me, see if we get a different result as I lose my voice here. All right, here we go. I don't think I did that one quite right. It ended up coming out much tighter than I expected it to, but that could simply be a product of the stitch length that I selected. Yeah, it didn't come out exactly the way I wanted it, but operator error, I think. Alright, we'll just move forward from that one because I'm not going to repeat it a third time. That's silly. Alright, let's just jump into the next one, and then what I'll do is I'll show you that row we just did along with the other one after we sew this final stitch off, which is going to be 1, 2, 2. So let me get this back into position. All right. Yeah, apparently that 6 series is a problem for me for some reason. So we've done all of these. And then we have this last one, which is going to be 1, 2, 2. And again, we're not doing anything with C because it's a static constant through all of this. It's been on that setting. So let's change Control A to 1 and then Control B to 2, and we'll see what we get. Okay. So I'm going to zero out B. I'm going to change Control A to 1. We're on 6 right now. So it's on 1. Then we're going to move Control B over to 2. I almost did it wrong again. I almost went to 3. I was like, hey, let's go to 3. All right, so let's give this one a try now and see what result we get with this one. Here we go. You notice we have all the controls working right now. We have Control D working. We have Control A in motion as well as we're sewing this particular pattern. Down position. Came so close. Yeah, and this one is going to be, it's going to have similar attributes. I don't know, maybe I like this. I think I do kind of like this stitch pattern, and all of them are going to have similar attributes. So I know that Sandra's probably going to have a lot more fun than I did in picking out more varied ones, because all of mine are different, but they have similar qualities. They have similar qualities. But that's the beauty of getting a machine and getting acquainted with it and learning it, becoming, you know, kind of having fun and exploring. When I'm doing a premiere, I'm trying to get through a certain phase of things rather rapidly, and I don't have as much fun creatively as I could sometimes if I were sitting down at the machine for several hours. Okay, so let's look at the stitches that we did generate using this embroidery kit that's mounted on this 130-6. Take a look at these. I've got to angle that a little bit more. And we might look at them in totality because they're really close to each other. Get the camera situated, and then I'll take my hands off of it so I stop wiggling it. Okay, there we go. I took my hands off the camera so you can actually see it without me jiggling it. So you can see all of them are going to have very different stitch outputs. This one right here is not going to represent the original stitch on the stitch wheel very well, because some of these are going to require adjustments as far as stitch length to see that definition. This one I made way too small. But these other ones I did a much better job with. This top one, the third one down, the fourth one down, and the fifth one, I like that quite a bit. That's really a good looking stitch. So I think, again, depending on your selection, again, you're going to have a huge number of options when it comes to stitch output using this embroidery kit on the 130-6. You're just going to have a huge choice. And it's totally subjective, because one person will look at that stitch wheel and they'll pick out, like I did, these 5 patterns. Another person will pick out 5 entirely different patterns. So it's really going to be up to that end user to say, as Sandra, yeah, I want to make a baby blanket, and this is the stitch that I really want to try to put on it. And that's cool. That's totally cool. But I'm really pleased with the way these present. I'm actually going to come in a little bit tighter. I'm really pleased with the way these present, and it just gives you a little impression of the capabilities of this embroidery kit. Again, it's not cam generated, so it's not going to have quite as much minutia, quite as much specificity as the later models that used cams that had a lot of definition. These are going to be a little bit broader in a sweep, but again, when you look at them, including this lock stitch, it truly is very impressive what they came up with as far as a specific mechanical function to take a machine that was only able to do zigzag and to give it a lot more versatility. A lot more versatility. And these are probably some of the more common fancy stitches that this machine will do with that embroidery kit. Someone else will pick out much more, a lot cooler ones. A lot cooler ones. Yeah. But I'm very pleased. It looks really good. Great stitch definition, even using a size 100 needle and standard type quilting thread instead of embroidery thread. So imagine, again, those stitch offs that I did off camera compared to this one. As a matter of fact, I'll show you if I can reach over the light without knocking anything over. I'll just kind of put them right here. Yeah, there, and maybe over. Well, why don't we do this? Because I want you to look at them comparatively. Why don't we do this? See if I can. Ah! Yeah, there we go. There we go. I think that's backwards, though. Yeah, it is. That would be backwards, too. Yeah, it is. I had them both backwards. Oh, well. So again, these were done with a size 100 needle just now. You witnessed that on this live premiere. Non-embroidery style thread, standard quilting thread. Then we have these that were done with a size 80 needle. A size 80 needle using embroidery floss type thread that gives you a lot more definition. So this will give, I think, will give Sandra a really good impression of what she can do, what she can experiment with in order to get different outcomes as she gets acquainted with this 130-6. But again, I'm quite pleased considering the size of the needle and the thread choice on how these turned out. But again, you can also use a different needle, different thread, and get a different outcome. There you go. All right, so let me throw all of these to the back. I'll create one pile for the live premiere, one for off-camera shooting that I did. Move this out of the way. And why don't we now disengage the embroidery function of this machine, and we will concentrate on doing some heavier duty type sewing. Oh yeah, I can see that now. I actually had two of those. Okay, so I'm going to we'll do a single layer first, and then we'll do 2 layers of it. And I can actually use one of these layers so I don't have to sacrifice a second layer of the elk hide, because I'm getting down on that elk hide, so okay, that's spot on. There we go. So if you're new to this channel, this again, you saw the off-camera ones that I did. I showed you those in the beginning of this premiere. But again, if you look at the edge, let me really zoom in on that. If you look at the edge of that elk hide and know that it's chemically processed, about 4 ounces of leather. A single layer is enough to demonstrate the strength of a machine, in my opinion. But this channel is all about doing the extreme. So I'm going to definitely, after we do this single layer, we'll go ahead and add a second layer to it. And we'll do a second layer, or 2 layers rather, of sew-off on the elk hide. I'm trying to look up a song at the same time. If it sounds like my brain is all scattered, it's because I'm looking at one thing, I'm saying another, and blah, blah, blah. So this is called Birthday Cake. Birthday Cake. So this is February. If it was your birthday in February, happy birthday. If it's your birthday in March coming up, happy early birthday. Again, like the Oliver's son, like Sandra's brand new baby boy, like me, it was your birthday back in January, happy belated birthday. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm liking this music a lot. Yeah, I am. I'm liking this music a lot. Okay, and I'm actually going to adjust this over a little bit since I'm going to add a second layer to it. I'm not going to sew this all by itself and then sacrifice 2 more layers because I'm getting real low on elk hide. If anybody's going elk hunting, keep me in mind, please. Keep me in mind. All right, so I'm going to set that over there. All right, so let's do a single layer, but first of all, we've got to disengage the cam function on this machine, adjust our stitch length, and get this machine back to a regular mode of sewing. So, I should show that to you. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. All right, let's come over here. All right, so we've been doing sewing using this super cool embroidery kit, right? Which I can see I've gotten dust on it a little bit. I didn't even show you on the back. It's kind of groovy. On the back of this embroidery kit, they actually put the branding mark of Pfaff on it, made in Germany. And this, I think that's neat. Yeah, totally neat. All right, but we're done being neat with decorative stitching. Now it's time to go to the bare bones of what this monster of a machine can do. So the first thing we have to do is, right now we've got the embroidery function engaged because that little pin is all the way in that track right on here. So we've got to pull that pin back out and shut that embroidery feature off, which we just did. It's that easy. Embroidery feature off, embroidery feature on. Off, on, off. Yeah, we want off. Then we have to go over to our stitch length. Oh, I actually did it. I was getting ahead of myself. No, that's where we were. Yeah. Bring my light in a little bit. Yeah, we were down in this range for decorative type sewing. Now we need to move it all the way up to the top to get our longest stitch for most of our sew-offs. And then we have to take this, since we're going to be doing a straight stitch first, we need to take our stitch width controller and we have to bring it all the way down to 0. Okay? All the way down to 0. Yeah. And I need to check our needle alignment. Our needle alignment was actually in position 1, so I just moved it to 2. And it gives us a center needle position. So now, I'm just going to double check. Double check so I don't wreck. So we shut off our cam function. We adjusted our stitch length back to a longer stitch. We were way down there for the decorative stitching. We double checked our needle position and we made sure it was center needle position. And then we moved our stitch width controller, Control D, all the way down to 0 for straight stitching. Okay? All right, we should be set. I hope. You never know. The only other thing I'll do, and it's probably not absolutely essential because the cam feature is off, but I'm also going to take our Control B and move it from where it's at right now in position 2, move it all the way down to 0. There we go. Yeah, I think that'll do it. That might do it. Could do it. Gosh, look at all that dust I generated. We're dusty. We're super dusty. We're dusting all over the place. Okay, let's head down to the needle. And we'll sew off our first heavy duty sewing using Sandra's model 130-6. Oh, that helps a little bit. I just tightened another little knob on this tripod and now it's not drifting. I wish I had known that before. Okay, so let's try this and see how this 130-6 does with its 1.3 amp motor, sewing a standard straight stitch going down this single layer of genuine elk hide. Okay, here we go. Take up arm all the way up. Yes. Well, that was just so ridiculous. That was so ridiculously easy. We just went through like 3 to 4 ounces of chemically processed elk hide, and this machine just went done, done, done. I was barely pushing the foot controller down, folks. Seriously. I was barely even pushing the foot controller down, and this machine just went. That was easy. Like that button thing from Office Max or wherever it is. That was easy. All right, so let's make it a little bit harder, since that was so ridiculously easy for this 130-6. So now we're going to add a second layer of elk hide. We got our first stitch off here. Now we're going to flip this so they're back to back, and now we're going to lay down our second layer. So on this side, let me show that to you from here. On this side, yeah, I know that's crazy thick. That's absolutely nuts. 8 to 10 ounces of chemically processed elk hide. There it is. That's what it looks like, folks. Plastic machines around the world are screaming right now. Oh! They really are. Because this would destroy any of those machines that are on the shelf at retailers like Walmart. I'm saying it again. Walmart, your machines would be destroyed. Probably by the single layer, let alone 2 layers. So we've done our first stitch off right here with these incredible stitches. Get the right angle here. Absolutely spot on stitches. Now we're going to add this second layer and lay down a second line of stitches next to this other line. So on the back side we'll only have 1 line of stitches, obviously, for the lock stitch, but here we're going to have 2 top stitch lines. So we'll see if this machine dazzles us as much with these 2 layers of elk hide as it did with the 1. Make sure my take-up arm is all the way up. And we're going to try to get this done as easily as the other one. Here we go. Oops. I bumped. We're going to have a little bit of a zigzag thing going on initially because I bumped my Control D and it went over to a slight zigzag. So here we go. We'll continue this. Now we're doing a straight stitch. And I could blast it, but why do it, right? Why do it? Oh, that's a hoot. Yeah, we've got it's going to look like a bigger stitch, but it's actually the fact that it was beginning to try to burp a zigzag out of that. Yepper. All right. Well, like I said, anything is possible on a live premiere. You'll be able to see the zigzag from the backside very clearly. All right, let me get my my stitch off holder out that Maddie sent me from Florida, and we'll look at the top row and then we'll look at the bottom row. Oh my gosh. And I also for this stitch off, I decided, remember me talking about trying to go into the satin range sometimes, because it's going to give you a little bit more ability to really test the hook action of that machine and make sure that it's just running tip top. So I got a little bit of that going on too. I got all kinds of things going on. But the story to be told here is just how easily this 130-6 just got the job done. So let's look at these two rows at the same time. Again, one is going through a single layer. The second one is going through 2 layers. And then I also bumped the knob, and we got a slightly different stitch length variation going as well. Like I said, I got all kinds of things. There's my little zigzag that was trying to start. So between the zigzag and stitch length variations, but when you look at it in totality, the message here is the stitch is absolutely spot on. Whether it's the super short going towards the satin range, the standard size, whatever it is, we've got a stitch that absolutely is spot on. We come out here on the distance shot, the stitch formation, presentation, other than the variation, exactly as we want to see it. So now on the back side, you're going to see that one stitch line for the lock stitch that ends up being a combination of a zigzag and a satin style stitch, where this thing is just trying to figure out what it wants to be when it grows up. There's my, I told you I bumped the knob a little bit there. I'm starting to do a zigzag, and it's like, oh, wait. Now we're going back to the straight stitch again. I'll pause right there. See what I'm saying? It doesn't matter if the stitch is larger or smaller. Really doesn't even matter if it's a zigzag, sort of zigzag. It's all about stitch definition, stitch presentation, and this is as good as it gets. Those stitches are spot on. And again, that's the lock stitch coming through 2 layers of genuine elk hide. It doesn't get any better than that. Even with my little zigzag thing going on over there. If we look at the totality of the stitching, I mean, that's spot on. That's spot on. I'm very pleased with that. And if we look at, again from the side, to have a clue as far as the thickness factor, this is what we just sewed through. Where am I? This is what we just sewed through right there. 2 layers of elk hide. 2 layers of elk hide. That one you can't, yeah, they're uneven. We'll go back to this one, it's a little bit clearer. So, again, when you sew at this level, we're talking about 8 to 10 ounces of genuine elk hide. It's a game changer. But at the same time, when you're talking about a machine like this that is sewing so well, it's sewing so much at the top of its game, you can still go through that much leather and execute stitches like that. I'm going to throw this to the back. That's a definite pass. 2 layers of elk hide, not easy by any stretch of the imagination, and yet it got the job done just absolutely beautifully. Okay, let me pick out another tune, and we will move on to the next sew-off, which, from what I can see where I am at right here, it's going to be that vegan style leather. Again, that vegan leather is going to be a combination of leather and vinyl. There we go. I was trying to plug my camera in. I finally got it. So we did the birthday song again. Happy either belated birthday, happy birthday this month, or happy early birthday. All right, this next one's a little bit peppy. It's called Try to Catch Me. Try to Catch Me. You've heard this before. All right, let me get set up for the next sew-off. And I think we're going to be doing, again, we're going to be doing that vegan style leather. Trying to catch me and trying to give me a heart attack at the same time. Ah! decide if I want to do a single layer first or just jump right into 2 layers. I think we'll just do 2 layers. Why don't we do that? We'll kind of go down and around. Let me zoom in on this. And you can see the impact of the vinyl, where this stuff, which when you look at the grain on the back, you look at the top as well, it has all the appearance of being typical leather. But because of that curly factor in that vinyl in there, you can see that as I have this underneath the presser foot, it's trying to pull away from that presser foot. It's trying to pop up, which right away is going to tell you that this is going to be some tricky stuff to sew. So I'm going to do my best with it. So we'll go down and around and we'll see how this 130-6 does on this task. Again, a task that I think is going to really test this machine in being able to get the job done. All right, here we go. Adjust that up a little bit. All right, here we go. 2 layers of vegan style leather. Again, a leather vinyl type blend. Here we go. Stop in time? I think so. All right, so let me try to make this turn. And I'm going to head down to the finish. All right, here we go. Listen to this machine running. Again, we're going through 2 layers of what is a leather vinyl blend. See if you hear the machine straining or struggling or anything like that. Here we go. And I'm taking it incredibly easy. And maybe what we can do, because we have all that open space in the middle and I don't want to close the box, maybe what we can do is lay down a zigzag down the middle of that. That would be fun. Let's do that. Since I tried to sew a zigzag when I didn't want to sew a zigzag, now we can sew a zigzag on purpose. Yeah, we'll do something intentional. I think that would be good. See that thread? It's really squirrely. It tries to curl away. All right, let me get this over there. And again, whenever you're sewing something that has vinyl in it, it right away is going to try to distort those stitches. It's going to try to manipulate them. So to have, I mean, if you can see in the camera, to have a stitch output like this, kind of looking over my shoulder, I'm trying to keep it relatively straight. That's just beautiful, isn't it? Isn't that gorgeous? So now we're going to go down the middle and we'll try to lay down a zigzag down the middle. I just hate to waste all that open space there in the middle. Okay, so now we're over on a zigzag and we'll see how Sandra's machine does sewing a zigzag down the middle of this other field of stitches. All right, here we go. Trying to sew relatively straight if I can do it. Yeah, a lot of people would shy away from this vegan style leather, but I'll tell you one thing, I really like it. It really tests the machine. It really pushes that machine to a point where it needs to be running at the top of its game. Otherwise, it's going to struggle because of that vinyl being mixed into that leather. But this is absolutely spot on. I love this. I love this material from a standpoint of how it presents the stitches when the machine is running tip top. So let's do this. Let's grab our stitch off holder again. Do my best to remember, yeah, we had that side to the left because that was popping up. So we'll look at our top stitch first. If I can get this to lay properly. Without falling off, hopefully. So this is our top stitch. Again, this is vegan style leather. Leather and vinyl combination, and there it goes. Gravity test is a success. Yes, it is. I might not be able to use this stand right now. I may have to kind of put it in front of the stand and hold it with the clippers, I think. All right, let's give that a try. If it falls again, I might use duct tape or something. You never know. Okay, and this is narrow enough. I'm going to look at it in totality. So we're looking at the field of stitches on the outside that we sewed first, the straight stitching. And those are absolutely spot on. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch. Absolutely gorgeous. I've got a little bit of a bad angle here because that thing keeps trying to fall off. Let me come out a little bit. See if I can, without knocking it off the workbench, see if I can tilt it just a little bit more. Ugh. Oh, you see that? And I know what part of it is the leather right here. See this on the bottom? Let me just cut that real quick. Hold on a second. Instead of battling this silly thing, let me just cut that rough edge that's sticking down and causing it to be uneven. That should help quite a bit, I think. Maybe. Okay, let's try that. I'm going to move quick while it's still there. See the angle, when you get the right angle, it's just so much easier to see the stitch definition, isn't it? So there again is our top stitch. Absolutely, I mean that's page 34. Both for the zigzag and for the straight stitch. Very, very pleased with that. That's absolutely as it should be. If we look at the totality of the stitching, that is, I mean, that's just gorgeous. That's absolutely gorgeous stitching. Again, through a real tricky material, vinyl leather mix. Now let's turn it around and look at that lock stitch. Again, especially with material like this, that lock stitch, because of that vinyl being in there, is going to be real, it's going to have a great likelihood of trying to manipulate that stitch in some way. It's going to try to cause that stitch to be distorted. It's going to try to cause skip stitching, but not in this case. Absolutely spot on. I'm going to kind of move across it. I'm a little bit paranoid that it's going to fall off any second now, but hopefully not. Also, I'd like to angle it just a little bit more if I can do that. Well, you can definitely see the stitching on this. And again, 2 layers of this stuff. very tricky stuff. Let me see if I can angle it just a tiny bit more. I'm going to push my luck here. Yeah, that helps a lot. It's all about angle. Look at that. I mean, both rows, but that bottom row, because of the way the light is hitting it and everything right now. Speaking of light, I could probably bring that light in a little bit more too, couldn't I? That is just gorgeous stitching, folks. Imagine that on a product. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. I'm loving that. I'm loving that stitch. Absolutely gorgeous. And again, this is our lock stitch. If you didn't know this was a lock stitch, it could just as easily be the top stitch. And again, it's always easier to execute a top stitch. Always, 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 always easier. I got to come all the way out there for the totality because it's so long. But that is absolutely, that is brag-worthy. That's brag-worthy stitching on that vegan style leather. So I'm going to throw that to the back as a definite pass before it falls off the workbench again. Put that in the pile, move this out as well, because I like to come out and actually be able to see the machine a little bit as well, because we're always zoomed in on the needle the majority of the time. Now let's grab our next material, which it looks like it's going to be genuine cowhide. I've got some genuine cowhide, and this is real nappy stuff. See that? Super nappy. I'll kind of zoom in on that a little bit so you can see the nappiness of it. This is real nappy stuff, so what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to fold it so that we have the smooth side facing out and the smooth side on the bottom as well. It'll just make it easier to see what we're actually sewing. And we'll probably do 2 layers of this. Again, the purpose of the premiere is not to show the max of the machine, it's to show quality of stitch and also a diverse field of sewing. So we're going to do that again. I'm also going to adjust our lamp a little bit down there by the needle as well. And we're going to have a little green mark on here. Those of you that follow me faithfully know that the green mark is because I buy scrap leather, basically. There's our 2 layers right there. But again, about 8 ounces of leather, folks, and this is genuine cowhide. But again, we get these green marks on here because I buy scrap leather because it's all that I can afford. I can't buy premium leather and use it for sew-offs, otherwise, yeah, I'd be in a tent pretty quick. Actually, sewing on a tent would be kind of fun too, but anyway, that's why these green marks are here. These are the scraps that they end up not using. I get it from someone that sews basically private jet plane seats. They make seats out of them. And we're going to be going down and around, again, through 2 layers of this stuff, about 8 to 10 ounces of genuine cowhide. And the other thing I'll show you real quick when I have this in position is I'll show you that this 130-6 also has a slight hyperextension. That's fully up right now, and then we can hyperextend it without me tipping the machine over, hopefully. Just get a very slight hyperextension, not much, but even a ½ millimeter might help you out if you're in a sticky situation with something being too thick. Okay, so here we go, down and around with 2 layers of heavy grade, not heavy grade, 2 layers of genuine cowhide. Here we go. Oh, I'm on zigzag. Let me go back to a straight stitch. Oops. All right, here we go. Straight stitch going down and around. just love the way that machine runs. You can hear that, I'm sure, on camera. It's just like it basically, I mean, I translate that to being power. That's power. And again, I'm only giving it a fraction of its capability when it comes to being able to you know, really blast through something. I'm only giving a little bit of power to the foot controller. All right, and down to the finish. Here we go. Oh, I love that sound. Don't you? Just absolutely spot on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down a zigzag down the middle of this also, kind of like we did on that other sew off. And then we'll take a look at these stitches in totality. Oh, I bumped that a little bit. I hadn't seen that. I bumped my stitch length a little bit when I went down that second side, so it's going to be a little bit of a variant. But again, we can look at the stitch, not the size of the stitch. I keep bumping knobs during this premiere. What is up with that? Alright, so let's go down the middle now with a zigzag. Move that over. Isn't that fun when you're kind of messing around with the stitch length? It kind of moves. Because stitch length, if you don't know this, is regulated by the movement of the feed dogs. So it's just kind of fun to goof around with a little bit. Yeah. Alright, so I'm going to lay a modified zigzag down the middle now. Here we go. Did I stop in time? I think I did. Maybe. Maybe not. Absolutely gorgeous stitching. Absolutely gorgeous stitching. All right, let's move that to the back. Let me clip these threads and we'll take a look at this. But from what I'm seeing from my seat is just absolutely spot on. Other than me doing one row of straight stitching shorter than the other, the stitch quality is really what we're looking at, and it is absolutely page 34. Absolutely page 34. Just make sure, yep, that's a top stitch. Get my lights to stay in place. Come on. All right, that's going to have to do. I've got this spring on this one light, and when you flip it a certain way, it's supposed to stay in place, but it doesn't. Okay, so let's look at that top row first that I did shorter than the other one. That's not satin range. It's probably about 12, well, 10 to 12 stitches per inch. Again, through some real tricky and thick. Look at that from the side. Some real thick and tricky genuine cowhide. And again, when you're going, you've heard about using the grain of wood, right? You always put the wood grain going the same way together. When you're putting these back to back like this so we can see the stitch definition more clearly, instead of having to contend with that nap, we're really sewing against the grain. we're sewing against the grain, which makes it a lot more challenging from a standpoint of getting through the material. There's our zigzag. Absolutely a lovely zigzag right there. Our straight stitch is lovely too. And then I went with a longer stitch length on the edges and this other row, and you can kind of see that popping through as well. And the totality of stitching, don't have to come out quite as far on this one, thank goodness. But again, the presentation of the stitching is really what we're looking for. Kind of come a little bit closer. Whether it's the smaller stitching on top, where I was probably right around 12 stitches per inch, or the larger stitching on the bottom, or the zigzag for that matter, it just presents exactly the way it should present. And again, this is not a light sew-off. This is about 8 to 10 ounces of genuine cowhide. Cowhide is not an easy leather to sew. It's a little bit tricky. You can kind of see it from the side here if I hold it up to the camera. It gives you an idea there of the thickness. Each one of those layers, like I said, would just cause a plastic sewing machine to just scream out for help. But that's a definite pass, these 2 layers of genuine cowhide. I mean, I'm amazed at how easily this 130-6 is getting the job done. I guess I shouldn't be, but it really impresses me sometimes, even as much time as I spend on these machines, to see them at this finish line point where they're being premiered and just dancing up a storm when it comes to being able to get the job done. So let's get this next sew-off in place. I've already done quite a sew-off sandwich. I mean, all of these embroidery kit generated stitches. We got to turn my screen around. All of these that we did on this live premiere, plus this cowhide that we just did, 2 layers of that. 2 layers of this vegan style leather, which in and of itself is a real tricky sew off to do. But Sandra's machine just did a fabulous job. And then we've got these 2 layers of genuine elk hide as well. This in and of itself is enough to, I mean, just say we're done. This elk hide, or really any of these. And this is our sewing sandwich, or sew off sandwich I should say, that we're starting to build. And we're not done yet. We're going to be doing some more, obviously some more sewing beyond all we've already done on camera and off camera. So I think what we'll do next is some of this. This is commercial grade canvas. Commercial grade canvas. I had to think about it for a second. I almost said U.S. Army grade canvas, but it obviously isn't. So let me move in on the shot on this a little bit and give you a clear picture of what we're going to sew. I'll just go ahead and fold it since we're already in the process of folding it. If I fold it to the middle, we're up to 4 layers. And then if I finally fold it again, we're all the way up to 6 layers. And I'll show you what that looks like when we zoom in. I mean, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. Let me get that into place. And I think we might do a modified zigzag on this just to make it even a little bit more challenging. We're already set for a zigzag. I might just tighten it up a little bit. Trying to think of how big our last zigzag was. Okay. So let's zoom in on this and we'll do this next sew off. As we zoom in on it, you can kind of see the thickness factor of what we're going to be trying to manage down at the presser foot. Feed factor is going to be a major consideration as we're looking at this. So we're going to have to see how this 130-6 does going through this many layers of commercial grade canvas. Let's see here. I'm going to put on your dancing pants, but I'll turn the volume way down. We'll do this next one. Turn it down a little bit further. All right, let's get this next one done. Again, we're talking about 6 layers of commercial grade canvas. This is even tougher than that U.S. Army grade canvas, folks. It really is. All right, here we go. Let's see what happens. And I am going to take a little bit slow because this is crazy. This is very, very intense. All right, going over towards the edge. Here we go. All right, down to the finish. I am holding my breath because this is 6 layers of this stuff is like sewing through patio blocks. It really is. Here we go. All right, I can breathe now. I can breathe. Oh. All right, let's see how we did. This is a fun song. I love this song. Yes, I do. Six layers of commercial grade canvas. There's no way you would be sewing at this level for most projects ever. Ever, ever, ever. Holy mackerel. Look at this from the side. Six layers of commercial grade canvas, folks. That's like sewing probably the equivalent of 3 to 4 tents together. If you were able to fit the material for an average tent and take it times 4, that's basically what we just did. That's basically what we just did. I'm going to press that down a little bit as well. That is a new level of crazy. Are you used to it? You're used to it by now, I think. Okay, so let's look at the top stitch first, which I think we're going to be fighting that same balance factor, hopefully not as much, maybe. Okay, we'll look at this one first. And again, I don't suspect that Sandra will be doing anything at all close to this. Definitely not making baby clothes on a 6 layers of canvas, commercial grade canvas. But look at the execution. Again, look at that material. It's galvanized. It's commercial grade canvas, folks, and yet this machine is just going through it like, all right, all right, all right. All right. Yep, I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. Absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. Totality of the stitching. That is some gorgeous, gorgeous zigzagging through 6 layers of commercial grade canvas. Let's go ahead and flip it around and look at the lock stitch. Let's look at that lock stitch. Again, the lock stitch is always, always, always going to be tougher to execute than a top stitch. And even looking now from this distance at the totality of the stitching, Absolutely spot on. We'll start on the top and kind of go around. Because again, as you're sewing at different levels, different layers of material, you might have to make some adjustments on the tension. But here I'm seeing a very solid balance between what we saw on the top stitch and what we're seeing on this lock stitch. Absolutely spot on. Take a look at that bottom row now. And based on the stitch presentation, the stitch balance, I would almost say that we could probably, if we were going to be sewing a ton of this stuff, we could reduce that upper tension just slightly, because I'm seeing almost an overemphasis of that zigzag. Seeing almost an overemphasis. When that upper tension is pulling a little bit too hard, what you'll see is that thread, instead of being properly affixed to the material, showing the full breadth and spans of that stitch, you'll see a little bit of a condensed version of it. And as it's sewing the material, it will vary a little bit. And that is typically on a zigzag, it's going to be a product of the tension more so than the feed. And I'm being super hypercritical right now of it. We look at the totality of the stitching. Again, this is our lock stitch. It's absolutely as it should be. It's absolutely spot on. Both the lock stitch and the top stitch. So these 6 layers of commercial grade canvas, again, like sewing 3 or 4 tents together, is an absolute pass. I'm going to throw that to the rear. And we're going to move on to the next stitch off, which is probably going to be that dreaded acrylic fiber. The acrylic fiber is what they make awnings out of. Okay? That's what it looks like. And again, when you're feeling it in your hand, it basically feels like sandpaper. It feels like sandpaper. So you kind of look at it, it kind of looks like sandpaper almost. But I'm telling you one thing, when that needle hits this stuff, even a single layer of it, when that needle hits that, you know it. Because it hits it, it's like running into a truck. It's literally like running into a truck. It is intense stuff. All right, let me put on a little bit more music. We listened to Put On Your Dancing Pants. And now we're going to put on... Let's see here. Just seeing if I can pick out some other kids' songs than just the broad genre of children's music. I'd like to get some of the other songs, like There's a Hole in the Bucket, Dear Liza, that sort of thing. You know what I mean? Oh, that's boring. That's not what I wanted. Hold on a second. I'm almost there. I typed in the keyword kids instead. Let's see if we get some kids songs. Yeah, this is a little bit more what I was looking for. All right, let's do Row, Row, Row Your Boat. Here we go. So the key word I have to remember is kids, not children. Kids. Okay, let's sew some of this acrylic fiber. Throw your teacher overboard. Okay, that was my version anyway. Okay, we're going to try to sew all the way around the edge of this acrylic fiber, just like we were finishing off a seam in order to be able to put together an awning. Just check my alignment here. Okay, let's go around this edge. As we're singing together, row, row, row your boat. Okay, we'll probably do a zigzag on this as well. All right, here we go. This stuff makes me nervous, it does. All right, here we go. Gently down the stream. I think I went too far that time. Let's see. Oh boy, I am on the edge. I am on the super edge here. It'll be a little bit off here. We'll see if we can straighten it out. Stop a little bit sooner this time so I don't go off the edge. Here we go. Again, I'm going to be sending all these sew-off samples to Sandra down in Texas. So she'll be able to hold them in her own hand, or as some customers have done, she'll be able to re-sew them with her machine if she wants to. That's why I sent them down, so that she can validate and also celebrate what her machine is able to do. She's already seen it on camera. Then she can see it right in front of her as well, which is kind of fun when you can actually do that. All right. I think what I'll do is I'll finish this off going corner to corner using a straight stitch now. Well, we're going to go pretty teeny tiny on this. Let's see how we can do with this. Here we go. I think I still had it on. I was looking up at the control because I saw, okay, did I bump the control again? Did I do it again? Probably. All right, now we'll create like a little pirate's flag now. Now we're going to go across the other way and create the rest of the X. Create the rest of the X on there. And we're not quite in the satin range. We're pretty much down there. We're probably right around 8 to 10 stitches per inch, somewhere in that range. All right, let's finish this off now. Again, we're going to straight stitch down to the other corner. Here we go. After I bring my take-up arm up. There we go. Well, that time I wasn't looking at the control, so I actually did a better job of getting all the way into the corner. Did better that time. Okay, so let's give this a clip, and we'll take a look and see how this 130-6 did against this acrylic fiber. This stuff, again, is really super tricky, super tricky. I mean, it's almost like a duh thing. I mean, you're talking about a material that is designed to withstand high winds, all weather, stretching, pulling, ripping, hopefully not ripping. And it just continues to stand up to all that kind of abuse. That's really the whole purpose behind acrylic fiber. So you might be saying, why in the heck are we sewing it then? Because it's a challenge. It's a challenge. So let's look at totality first. We'll kind of come out on the shot. Then we'll zoom in and kind of walk around the stitching a little bit. Focus on the zigzag first. And then we'll follow our crisscross going across for our straight stitching. Now there, right in the middle, in the intersect, you can see that stitching from this angle, the other line going across much more clearly. Much more clearly than the one that we're following right now. That one's a little bit harder to see, especially after this, against this real super busy acrylic fiber field of fibers. I mean, it just messes with your eyes a little bit, but you can just see a gorgeous straight stitch right there at that intersect extending out. The formation, the presentation, just spot on. So we'll continue on our track going down. Now we'll come back up and go across the other way. There you can see it again. We got just the right lighting, just the right angle. Just absolutely gorgeous stitching. We'll kind of come out and look at the totality again, and then we'll flip her around and look at that lock stitch. But I'll tell you one thing, folks. If you ever sit down and try to sew acrylic fiber, it will give you a new appreciation for how tricky and tough this stuff is. Truly, super, super tricky. So there's our lock stitch now. Let's take a look at that. You can already see it in totality. Absolutely spot on. And again, depending on how our lighting is hitting it, will depend to some extent how much you can see. I'm going to try to bring our lights in again and just give it a little bit better illumination. Yeah, that is gorgeous. That is absolutely spot on. I love that. That is absolutely as it should be. So let's zoom in over here. We'll take a look at these a little bit closer up. And again, we're looking also for stitch balance as far as tension. Because again, we don't sit all day long sewing this stuff. It's not My Pillow Company or something like that. The fellow that is under a lot of criticism right now. We're doing this just as a kind of a one-off to demonstrate the versatility of the machine, the strength of the machine. So if we sewed a ton of this acrylic fiber, if we were making awnings all day long, we would be able to develop the science of the balance of the tension much better than we can as a one-off. But this machine, let me say this, there's our intersect again. And again, exactly the same. If you were looking at these, one after another, and you didn't know which one was the top stitch, which one was the lock stitch, knowing the lock stitch is always more of a challenge. You could look at that and go, I think it's the top stitch, but I'm not 100% sure. That is the greatest compliment to that machine, that you struggle with identifying, okay, which is which. Which is which? Beautiful stitching. So let's look at the totality of the stitching again at our kind of makeshift little pirate's flag or whatever it would be. And again, I'm just going to say wow, because I know what this acrylic fiber is like. Again, designed for awnings, high wind, stretching, torquing, twisting, beating up in the wind, pulled over poles and stretched to the max. This stuff is just incredibly, incredibly tough stuff. And we just went through 2 layers of it, a combination of zigzag and straight stitch. And this machine, this 130-6 that I prepared for my good friend down in Texas, Sandra, I mean, it just doesn't, it didn't miss a beat. It just got the job done. So I'm extremely pleased. We're going to throw that to the back as well as a definite pass, We don't have a whole lot left to sew. I'm going to throw this in the rear, and Probably going to do a little bit of upholstery material and some of that dreaded compressed felt, and that's gonna do it. That's gonna do it. We might as well do the compressed felt next. We normally do 3 layers of it, so we're gonna do 3 layers again, and I'll probably use a zigzag this time. So there's 2 layers, and then 3 layers. Just gonna check to make sure I have it overlap correctly. There we go. That's the way I wanted it. All right, we're going to do the same thing down and around on this. So we've got 3 layers of this acrylic fiber. If you want to look at it from the side, that's kind of what it looks like right there. Oh, I'm not even zoomed in. Duh. I just flipped the screen around. It's like, boy, we're far away. We're far, far away. Okay, there we got it. Finally. Alright, so let's sew a modified zigzag around this. We'll see how this 130-6 does with a task like that. Again, whenever you incorporate needle swing, it's going to raise the difficulty factor of what that machine is trying to do. Because you're looking at not only having to pull that thread back up when you execute that zigzag, but you're also having to contend with the movement of the material, the sway of the needle, and everything else. So if we can get through this compressed felt as easily as we did the acrylic fiber, I will be able to breathe a sigh of relief. And really, I'm not overly concerned about it, but I just know how tough, how super tough this stuff is. It truly is. It's very, very difficult to get through. All right, blah, blah, blah. Let me get that take-up arm all the way up, and let's try doing 3 layers of this compressed felt once I get my thread tamed here. Kind of looking forward to summer where the air won't be quite as dry, because it is a challenge. It's a little bit of a challenge to try to go through this stuff. All right, here we go. And again, I'm not going for speed. I'm just kind of getting a nice little rhythm going down, a nice little, nice little pace. Nice little pace, not rushing. You do not want to rush through 3 layers of this compressed felt. You do not. Unless you're trying to break a needle or thread or something like that. Because this stuff is incredibly intense. All right, let's go down to the finish now. And we'll see if we can complete this cycle of sewing without breaking a needle, which I've done on this material, without breaking thread or having something else crazy happen. Here we go. Woo! Woo, doggy. I might even close the box off. I'm feeling so good about that. All right, here we go. Alright, let's take a look at this stitching. Yes, I like a little bit of drama. I don't have any major reservations knowing how I prepared Sandra's machine, but still, anything can happen on a live premiere, as I've demonstrated before, where I'll have a sudden hiccup, not me personally, but I'll have a sudden hiccup with something going south, and it's like, okay, we gotta adjust to that now. There's nothing wrong with something going wrong on a live premiere, but then you have to be able to adjust and make it right. That's the big deal. That's the big deal. Because inevitably, you're going to encounter weird stuff happening sometimes when you're doing a live premiere. It's just going to happen. It's going to happen. All right, how about a little bit more kids music? Let me see if I can pick out a fun one for this new baby boy that Sandra and her husband have. Like Yankee Doodle, that's a fun one. Yankee Doodle. All right, let me get my sew-off holder in position, and we'll take a look at these stitches as well. In his hat and called it macaroni. Come on! Yankee Doodle. Come on, kids! Okay, what does that mean, with the girls be handy? Is that like fixing things, or is that like they're too young to date. You're too young to date. You're only 18. All right, let's take a look at these stitches. With the girls be handy. I'm still wondering about that line, folks. I don't know. We may have to put a disclaimer on this video premiere. Folks, those are absolutely spot on. Those are absolutely spot on zigzags. Let's come on and look at the totality. And again, this is 3 layers of compressed felt. Compressed felt is ridiculous. And that's absolutely page 34, first edition. Yes, yes it is. Let me turn that around. Let's look at the lock stitch. How do we do on the lock stitch? Is it spot on? Yes, it is. All right, let's walk around these stitches as well. Again, this is a one-off. We're not doing a ton of this. But I don't see any adjustments that I would make on the upper tension as far as how this zigzag lock stitch is defined. Absolutely spot on. Beautiful stitching. Let's look at the totality one more time. Right at the end of the song. No, I didn't plan that. It just happened. It just happened. Yeah. Folks, that is some beautiful zigzagging through 3 layers of this compressed felt. Very tricky stuff. Very, I mean, if something's going to mess with you during a live premiere, it's probably either going to be this, the acrylic fiber, or possibly some of the leathers. But all in all, this is one of the sew-off materials that makes me take a deep breath and sometimes hold my breath a little bit as I'm doing it, because it's tricky stuff. And yet, this 130-6 that's heading down to Sandra in Texas just did a spectacular job. Spectacular! So I'm going to throw this to the rear as a pass as well, because it just did a phenomenal job. Phenomenal job. Phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal. So let's come out again and look at this incredible German engineered machine, West German engineered machine. And I will pick out my next victim to go underneath the presser foot, which it looks like it's going to be our last sew-off material that I prepared, which is going to be this commercial upholstery material. Again, oh, and I'm not zoomed in. Let me fold it and then we'll zoom in. So I've got 2 layers. I've got 4 layers. I'm going to fold it one more time and get us all the way up to 6 layers of this stuff. I'll show you what it looks like once I get it into position here. All right, let's drop that presser foot. And take a look at this final sew-off that we're going to do on Sandra Sokol's 130-6. 130-6. There it is from that end right there to give you an idea. 6 layers of commercial grade upholstery material, enough to give you a subtle heart attack. Look at it from that side as well. We haven't even sewn it yet. And already it's like, ah, yeah, good luck, buddy. Good luck! Hey, we just heard the Yankee Doodle song. You don't scare us. You don't scare us! Not even slightly. Matter of fact, I'll tell you what, we're going to pick another fun song. Yes, we are. Oh, this is fun. Let's do this one. the alphabet song. The alphabet song. I want to hear all of you singing. All of you singing in this class. You ready? J-K, L-M-N-O-P. I'm trying to get the rhythm here. I just don't have it. Oh, there we go. Thank goodness. H-I-J-K, L-M-N-O-P, Q-R-S-T-U-V, W, X, Y, and Z. Now I know my ABCs. Next time, won't you sing with me? Come on, sing with me. This is for Sandra's baby boy that was born on January 14th, for goodness sake. We gotta teach him the alphabet. Yeah. T, V, W, X, and Z. Know my C. Won't you me? I can't play the harmonica on this one. H-I-J-K-L-M-N-O-P, Q-R-S-T-U-V, W-X. Come on! Now I know my ABCs. Next time, won't you with me? Yeah! Okay, rock it out, kids. Come on! Rock it out! H-I-J-K-L-M-N-O-P, Q-R-S-T-U-V, X, Y, and Z. And now I know my ABCs. Next time, won't you sing with me? This is inspiring. This is an inspiring song. Yes, it was. Well, I hope all of you were actually singing that. I hope you were. What else do we have? That's... Oh. Oh, this is... Oh, that's... No, I want the kids to sing. I want vocal. I don't want just instrumental. Hold on a second. Okay, this will be our last song, but I'll put it on after we do this sew off. And it's called none other than Robot Boogie. This will have to be fun. Okay, so let's do this final sew off. I had to do the alphabet song, folks. I just had to. Had to do the alphabet song. Okay, so here we go. Our final sew off with 6 layers of commercial grade upholstery material. And again, we're going to be doing a zigzag because it's harder. It's more difficult. All right, here we go. After I take my take-up arm up. All right. Keep your fingers crossed. We have worked this needle very, very hard. So hopefully we make it through this final sew off, and obviously I'll put in a brand new needle before this machine heads towards Texas. Here we go. Oh, what did I say? What did I say? See that? We worked this needle really, really hard, and I just broke the thread, which tells me I probably worked that needle a little bit too hard. Plus I had needle swing. Alright, so I am going to do a quick change here. Bear with me for a second. That way I don't have to put another needle in. I can just put a fresh needle in for Sandra. Alright, hold on. finished needle for Sandra. Yeah, this upholstery material, it's not likely that even upholsterers, not even likely that upholsterers would be doing 6 layers of this stuff. But I like to really push the machine outside of the boundaries of what you would normally expect to see it doing, so that we have that confidence that it can hit the lower ranges as well. Let me get my light to stay. See that? Final sew off. Final sew off. Okay. Well, Sandra, you have a brand new needle now. After I beat this needle, the old needle, to death, now you've got a brand spanking new needle. So, and that's a good tip for anybody, is if you're really working on a heavy project and you're saying, oh, I'm just going to go a little bit further. Just going to go a little bit further. And you end up having thread breaking. It's usually an indication that that needle is starting to get barbed. Barb means it's starting to get little imperfections on it that are allowing it to not allow that thread to pass through that material as evenly and as freely. So everything has a failure point on it, you know what I mean? Everything has a failure point. And I tend to push things during premieres pretty crazy hard. You can usually see that when you look at that sew-off sandwich, like, holy mackerel, we sewed all of that plus the stuff off camera? Yep. That's okay. That's okay. Alright, let me see if we have everything lined up. I think we do. So now we can finally finish this sew-off through 6 layers of this, and I'm hoping my thread doesn't break again. If it does, it's not the needle, it's the thread. So we're going to take it nice and easy, and we'll see how we do. See how we do. All right, here we go. Nice and slow. Okay, slow and easy down to the finish. We're doing 6 layers of commercial upholstery material here, folks. This is intense. Probably bit off more than I should chew, but you know what? It's what I do in the workshop. Let's see what we can do. This final line here of stitching, we'll take it nice and easy, nice and easy. Plus we could show the control speed on the machine as well, which is pretty cool. Whoa, okay. I am not going to push my luck and try to close the box after all of that. Not after all that, And we still have to wind a bobbin after all that. Holy mackerel! This is insane. But that's okay. That's okay. Start to feel stressed. We're going to put on this Boogie Woogie song here any second now. Any second now! I hope I didn't just scare Apollo or Vito. Vito. Probably Vito. Sonny, we haven't talked about your dog. I don't know if it's Vito or Vito. I think it's Vito. It must be Vito. It's probably going to be Vito. Jiminy crickets, that is insane. Look at that from the side, folks. After I turn my screen around, you can look at it from the side. 6 layers of commercial upholstery material. There's no way if you're an upholsterer that you're going to be sewing that many layers of upholstery material. Now, you might have some layers of upholstery material and then some other material like filler stuff or whatever, but doing this much, I doubt it. I doubt it a lot. And if you are, you're going to be using upholstery thread, which is a heck of a lot stronger than this quilting thread that I'm using to sew this material with. Yeah, definitely. Look at from the side. Jiminy crickets. All right, let's get it set up and look at the stitching. After all of that drama. Trying to think here. Yeah, that'll be my top stitch. Holy mackerel. 6 layers of commercial upholstery material. 6 layers. I gotta put on some music. Let's put on Robot Boogie. Yeah, it is. That's a little boogie right there. All right, let's take a look at these stitches. Folks, that is an absolutely drop-dead gorgeous zigzag through 6 layers of commercial upholstery material. That is what? Well, that's kind of where, that's where I broke the thread, and it's kind of a cool little design though. Look at that sucker. Yeah, it is. All right, let's come out a little bit. Totality of the stitching. All right, totality of stitching. Hold it right there. Don't move. Come on, let's see a little bit of move there, Harold Meister. Yeah, I'm seeing that. Come on, dig it out a little bit. Dig it out. 6 layers of upholstery material, Herr Obermeister. Yeah. This is Farouk. This is crazy. Woo! All right, let's look at the lock stitch. Wait until Sandra actually feels this with her own hand. She's going to be like, you've got to be kidding. You did that on my machine? I'm going to get a note. Yeah, just ignore the turn. This is lock stitch, folks. Lock stitch through 6 layers of commercial upholstery material. We sewed like a couple of couches here. Yeah, that was my, It looks better from the other side, but that's where the thread broke. Yeah. Folks, that is page 34. Page 34. Yep. That is absolutely page 34. Maybe I'll start looking at using a heavier thread, maybe more of an upholstery thread than this quilting thread or, the Coates and Clark stuff. Because some of this stuff I'm sewing is just off the charts. This is off the charts. 6 layers of upholstery material. Seriously? I mean, look at it again from the side. Look at that from the side. We're talking a phone book. That's a phone book right there. That is just a new level. That is a new level of crazy. And I'm going to give that a definite pass after all of that abuse. Not the machine, to me. Causing me to have heart palpitations like, oh, what's going to go on? Oh no. So let's look at all of these together just for kicks and giggles, okay? So this is what we sewed. This is what I sewed sit down on my little stool. This is what I sold today on this live premiere. I know. Elk hide. Vegan leather. Cowhide. 2 layers of that. Look at it from the side. I almost don't even want to look at this anymore, but hey, 6 layers of commercial upholstery material. Ah! 3 layers of compressed felt. Yeah. 6 layers of commercial canvas, commercial grade canvas. Folks, 6 layers. I mean, you're used to seeing this on the channel, but it's not normal. We need help here. 2 layers of acrylic fiber. We basically just made a basic awning. We just made an awning. You can stand underneath this and it'll keep us dry. Maybe. But 2 layers of this stuff along with, I'm trying to get a little thing off of there. 2 layers of this acrylic fiber. Again, it's like sewing the equivalent of patio blocks. It's that strong. I mean, think about it. It's for awnings, for gosh sakes. Okay? And then last but certainly not least, right at the beginning of this crazy adventure, I did all of these decorative sew-offs using just a few of the settings that are part of that embroidery kit on this 130-6. Absolutely drop dead gorgeous, both the top stitch and the lock stitch. And I probably picked the most boring decorative fancy stitches that embroidery kit can do. Sandra, as I was scrolling past some of those, she was probably saying, stop, 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 stop. But she'll have a chance. She can pick her own. Yeah. So folks, that's it. That's it. All of these on camera. And just a reminder again, all of these off camera. So leading up to that thread breaking, finally, I'm kind of surprised it took that long. Leading up to that thread breaking, I had sewn most of that stack that I showed you already, plus this one. This one was done first on the needle, all of this stuff. And a lot of this is going to be duplicate. It's going to be that vegan leather. It's going to be elk hide. A lot of decorative sewing. Plus, I did 2 layers of protected full grain leather as well with this. And then I went through the majority of this up until the very last sew-off. Trying to get this all lined up here. Up until the very last sew-off of that commercial upholstery material. We made it all the way through. We made it all the way through all of this. And on that very final sew-off, that needle finally just said, enough is enough. Plus, I had already done all of this. So put it together. Any hunch, any guess as to why that needle finally said enough is enough? Yeah. 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 Good thing there's not like a hotline for needle abuse, because I would be on their speed dial. I would be on their speed dial. Yes, I would. Herr Obermeister's like, no, this is normal. This is what we do. Yeah, you're right. You're right. All right, so let me show you real quick, after all of that zaniness, craziness that we just went through, let me show you how you wind a bobbin on this puppy. It's not really a puppy. Might be. Could be. I can also show you how to thread it, but it's fairly straightforward to thread. All right, we'll show you how to thread it too. Hold on a second. Off the tripod. And I will tell you this, that when it comes to, Herr Obermeister, I'm going to have to say Entschuldigen Sie bitte again, because I got to show our friends how to thread this. So, tut mir leid. Let me move you over here. Okay, so threading the 130-6 I think is pretty daggone easy. It's pretty straightforward. So you come off the spool on top right here, you come right over to here. You're going to go underneath this thread guide, kind of underneath it, over the top of this tensioner, straight down here to the tension discs. Again, whenever you're threading a machine, make sure the take-up arm is at the highest position. Look at all that stuff from the sewing, all that dust. Yeah. You always want to make sure your take-up arm is at the highest position, like so. And you want to make sure that your presser foot bar is obviously at the highest position as well, so that those discs are wide open. So we're coming off the top. We came over the top of this, came down, come through those tension discs around. You then have to come past that spring and then back over the spring. See how it's over that spring right there? Then we have to come underneath this thread guide. We then have to go through and behind this additional guide right here, up to our take-up arm. And I always go through the first hole because that's where you're supposed to go. And unless you're doing dual needle sewing, then you'll have that one thread going through here, the other thread going through the top one. See that? Oh, look we can see ourselves. And then you come down through here, through that thread guide on the faceplate, all the way down through here. And there's a thread guide. It's a little bit hidden, sort of. It's a thread guide right over here. And you have to kind of come behind it and then bring that thread to the front. And then finally you're going to be threading this needle from front to back. Now as far as the bobbin case, you want to make sure when that bobbin case is being held in your right hand, that bobbin in your left hand, that thread is coming over the top. So if you can imagine putting that bobbin into the bobbin case, again, the bobbin case is in your right hand, the bobbin is in your left hand. And as you put that bobbin into the case, and then you thread that bobbin case, as that thread is coming out, you have to kind of imagine it with the case being inserted into the machine rather than looking at the back of it. So with the bobbin case being inserted in the machine, as that thread is coming out, that bobbin is going to be turning counterclockwise. Does that make sense? So again, thread over the top with the bobbin in your left hand, bobbin case in your right hand, slide that bobbin into the bobbin case, thread it through the appropriate track, and then as that thread is coming out, that bobbin will be turning like this. When it's in the machine, it'll be turning, I'm going to break something. It'll be turning like this, counterclockwise, okay? So now we talked about the bobbin case. Now let's actually wind a bobbin on this machine, which we're going to have to kind of undo part of our threading a little bit to accomplish that, which I'll do right now. Kind of come over here, bring that down. Come on, be nice, we're on camera. Be nice, we're on camera. Thank you. I'm going to set that right there. So now let's get back up on the tripod, because I only have so many hands, folks. I only have so many hands. And I think that's going to be a pretty good, well, a little bit further out, right about there. Okay. I think that's pretty good as far as the position and everything. Go right about there. Yeah. Okay. So I'm actually going to wind a bobbin using our green embroidery type floss that I used for those original decorative sew-offs that I showed you off camera. So we're going to put our floss on top of that other spool pin. Again, whenever you see two spool pins, that should tell you that that machine is capable of doing dual needle sewing. All right? So we're going to bring that thread across the machine to that thread guide that I pointed out to you when I was showing you the threading. We kind of come underneath that, over the top of that tensioner, over the top of the tensioner. Go in there, silly boy. And we're going to come all the way across the front of the machine. And some people will go underneath this as kind of a guide. I don't. I just go right across. We go to this tensioner right here. It's on the front of the machine. Can you actually see that? Or is that below the field of shot? That may be below the field of shot. I'm going to kind of go over the steps that we just did. So coming off the top, we come over here, we go underneath, then we come over the top of that tensioner right there, and we come back through, and actually I should move that to the outside. Oh, it is on the outside. It just kind of looked like it was underneath, but it's not. Okay, we're good. Then, whoops, where am I? Then you're going to come across the front of the machine, through that tensioner, and then we're going to bring that thread straight up to what eventually will be a bobbin on the bobbin winder. Okay, we'll kind of come out like about right there. Plus we have to disengage our clutch as well. Yes, we do. So let's get our bobbin on there first, and you'll want to make sure that you put the bobbin on so that the notch is facing in, because there's a little pin that it has to join up with. So make sure you don't put it like this, because most of these Pfaff bobbins are going to have a notch on one side and nothing on the other. So make sure you put the notch facing in. And you'll feel it slide into place and lock into place. Then we're going to bring this thread up. And I always roll the thread from the back to the front. So I kind of come around the back of the bobbin and then kind of give it a couple of wraps. Come on. All right, finally. And then you're going to push on this to engage it. Kind of hold onto that thread. Disengage your clutch. And then we're going to step gently on the foot controller and try to get that bobbin to start winding. Okay? Try to check the shot. There we go. Okay, I think we're pretty good. And I also always keep a little finger on top of this spool, because especially this high profile, I want it's going to be a little bit tippy. And we'll see how far we can wind it, because we don't have a lot of thread left on here. That's why I ended up not using this embroidery one. So I'll just kind of show you. We'll kind of zoom in on, while we're spinning it a little bit, we'll zoom in on the bobbin so you can kind of see that sucker filling up. Kind of go right about, yeah, you can see it. I think you can see it pretty much. Yeah, and that kind of naturally goes. I talked about kind of putting it underneath that little knob that engages the bobbin winder, or not the bobbin winder, that little knob that engages the embroidery feature, and that thread kind of just follows that anyway. Kind of go from here, through there, across, underneath there, down to there, up to there, and now we're going to kind of focus on that bobbin winder doing its thing until we run out of thread, which probably won't take too long. In fact, I'll come up a little bit so we can watch it run out. That'll be fun. And yes, I'll send this with. That way Sandra can kind of play with this one as well. So I'm just going to keep a finger up here, and we'll keep on rocking and rolling. Here we go. Oh boy, we're running out. We're running out. Yes, we are. There it goes. See where we are right now? This is why I didn't want to use this for the premiere. Oh yeah, we're down to bare bones here. We're down to bare bones. We're bare bones. So I'm going to catch that thread and kind of walk it across. Walk it across. There we go. And that is what you call a textbook perfect winding there. Well, that's as far as we were able to get with that thread that was left. Where am I? Left on there. But that's how simply you can wind a bobbin. It's really quite easy on this machine. As long as you route it correctly, and as long as you remember to put that little notch facing in so it connects with the pin. So, all right, so now the fun of setting this back up to sew again, which we're not going to do necessarily, but it will be ready for Sandra. So again, kind of come underneath, come over. And there we go. That's how it's done downtown. Downtown. That's how we do it downtown. Yepper. Oh, and I should, yeah. That's disengaged, but I should probably put the clutch back on, shouldn't I? You never know when you might need a clutch. So yeah, there goes the rest of that embroidery thread. I've got more of it, but not that color, so decided to start out fresh. Look at it again, that's just nuts. All of that sewing. The majority of all that sewing, 95% of that was all done on one needle. Yeah. All right. Well, this has been fun. It's been fun to get this 130-6 ready. It's been fun knowing it's going to be going to a household where there's a brand new baby boy that was born when? Type it in the chat. When was that baby born at their house down in Texas? And I don't even know Sandra's husband's name. That's kind of embarrassing. No, I don't have his name. So at any rate, Sandra and her husband had a baby boy. When was he born? I told you a couple times. And I'm not looking at the chat, so if you already typed it in, tell you what, I'll put on one more kid song as we wrap this final thing up. Oh, and I have another thing I was going to throw out there real quick. Hold on a second. Ooh, kids with lightsabers. That sounds like a fun one. Yes, it does. Kids with lightsabers is the next one I'll play while we're wrapping this up. But I had a question for y'all too. And it is, someone had told me they were going to send, let me do this before I kick our music on. Someone told me they were going to send this stuff to me to remove stickers from machines and stuff. And I don't remember who it is. So if it's you and you're in this premiere, would you please indicate that? You know, say, hey, it's me, I sent it to you, or send me a private note through Messenger, or an email, or a call, or a smoke signal, or something. Because I just wanted to say thank you so much for doing that. I've always had a process to get the stickers off, and I did try this on one of the machines that I'm beginning to work on, and it works incredibly well. It does a fabulous job. So again, if you're the one that sent this, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Step out of the shadows. Let me know that, you know, your name again, because I don't remember. It's been kind of crazy. And I would like to, again, just thank you so much for this. Very, very thoughtful. I know it came from Amazon, but that's about all I know. But this is really good stuff, really good stuff. So I just wanted to acknowledge that because I got it a while back and I hadn't used it. And then I thought, hey, I got this new machine. I want to try it on the sticker. And it did a bang up job. So I just wanted to thank you again. Yeah. Oh, I didn't even show Sandra either that I'm going to be sending with your machine one of these original Pfaff containers, and it's got all kinds of goodies in it. It's got some extra attachment. It's got some bobbins. I'll probably drop a couple other things in there as well before it goes out the door. So, okay, now the song that I wanted to play, which I'm really curious to hear, because it's called Kids with lightsabers. Kids with lightsabers. All right. We will start this premiere out, or end the premiere just the way we started it out. Kind of what I meant to say. All right, Harold Burmeister, back to your position, sir. Well, Sandra, thank you again for the opportunity of preparing this for you and for your patience in waiting for that part to come in that I was waiting on for a number of months. And the fact that we finally have this machine ready to start heading towards the great state of Texas. So thank you also, Herr Obermeister, for getting everything set up. And I hope you have a lot of fun with this machine and can sew a lot of cool stuff for your brand new baby boy who was born on January 14th. Just like J.D. Oliver's son, third son I should say, just like me. Now we got another one. January 14th, yeah, that's the day, that's the day. All right, thanks for watching, thanks for being great students. Class is over, and again, a special thank you to all of you Heroes for History that helped raise over $10,000 in only 10 days. Only 10 days! And I am making the final arrangements right now to head down there to wrap this contest up and to do the drawing down there and to meet all the great folks at the History Museum and hopefully have them share some great remarks as well about how much they appreciate what we did to try to help them. And Brian may even have a special announcement about, because of our involvement, they're not only surviving, they're thriving. And he might decide to share some of that. He might not. So I don't want to let any cat out of the bag. Why did they put the cat in the bag? What's that about? All right. God bless you guys. And watch for other great premieres like this, where we watch amazing machines do amazing things in spite of how much I abuse those needles sometimes. Yes, I do. Take care. Bye.